Hey, what's up? All my funketeers out there, my funk ambassadors, my true funk soldiers, all the first responders. Welcome to Funk Music with Zack right here on IBM.TV. Love having y'all. Peace and love and namaste and all that good stuff, man. Today, we're going to continue a little something we had going on over the weekend, and we're going to just try to thank and pay homage to all of our first responders out there. I love you guys, and you guys make the world go round. I'm rocking a little Chili Peppers red today and my Merry Christmas hat for everybody. Try to get everybody cheered up a little bit. And actually when I do my roll call, y'all know how I do. Sometimes I come on with something, sometimes I don't. Man, shouts out to the main man behind the glass, my brother from another mother, Mr. Mark Lee, back there holding it down. And thank you to everybody that sponsors, and also thank you to the IBM.TV, Dollar Store, and all that good stuff. Thank you for sponsoring us, Kim, Ankit, Nick, and everybody. You guys are great. It's all good. And, we're going to kick it today. We got a little Bootsy Colllins music coming up later on. And I must make this disclaimer. I do not own the rights to any of the music I play other than my theme, which belongs to John Groovalicious Willis. His son Kyle wrote that, and I have permission to play that. That is my theme. And also, I don't own the rights to any of the music that you may hear, but I do have permission from Bootsy Colllins and Peppermint Patty to play his stuff as well. So if you hear music on my shows, 9 times out of 10, y'all out there, man, I got permission to do it. I always dot my I's and cross my T's. So when you hear it, it's cool, but because it's the holiday season, I got to play a little Christmas music, and I don't think anything's wrong with that. So again, today's show going to be a little bit about that. I'm going to bring my man Mark on in about 20 minutes. We're going to, talk about some local things, issues that we have, as well as some national political things that we need to talk about. And we're going to try to spread some hope, some peace, some love, and some harmony. So welcome to Funk Music with Zack. And this is just for you guys out there. You sit back and relax and listen to it a little bit. It's one of my favorite Christmas songs that I really, really, truly like. And I really dig it. So, I hope y'all will dig it too. So y'all check this out and let's bring them in. How we bring them in, make it funky. Welcome to Funk Music with Zack. Right here. Get your hands up. Come on. New York, where you at? Florida's in the house. Philadelphia. Woo! Jersey. North Carolina and South Carolina. Yeah. Texas is in the house, y'all. Vermont. Ohio, West Coast, California, Washington, Oregon, Portland, Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, y'all, all around the world, Canada, Strong Island, where you at? Woo! Delaware, Pennsylvania. Yeah. Dubai, Australia, Germany, England. We all in the house today. Let's get funky in a special way. The Christmas mood. Yeah. You listen to the Pointer Sisters, y'all. Carolyn of the Bells, my favorite all-time Christmas song, bar none. Man, shouts out to all the first responders. I love you all out there. Thank you. Philadelphia. Brooks is in the house. Yeah. This is how we come in. We come in hot on Funk Music with Zack. So how y'all doing today? What's happening? Just had to bring y'all in like that. Mad shouts out to everybody. Thank you for tuning in to another great show right here on IBM.TV, Funk Music with Zack. Again, this weekend, I was trying to figure out something special that I could do and say to all of the first responders, that take care of us, that are dying on the front lines, that have family and friends that are dying on the front lines, that are just asking people to stay safe, be safe. And we're going to get into all of that in a minute, as well as what's going on with that shooting in Ohio. I'll bring my man Mark in for that a little bit later. But basically, it's about spreading peace and love and harmony. And that's always been the theme of whatever holiday you believe in around this time of year, or whether you believe in none, it's still cool. There's no right or wrong way on this planet. As I've gotten older, I've realized that some of the things that, you think are important, or you think are right, or you think are wrong, or that we fight over and all this other kind of stuff is really a waste of time. And, with age comes wisdom. So I'd like to think I have gained a smidgen of it. Not much, but as much as, my little brain can handle. And I think that, as we try to make it to the next levels, mentally, spiritually, and we use our harmony and our love for what it is we do, whether it's music or whether it's, entertainment, or whether it's correspondence, or whether you work in a medical field, or whether you like being a policeman, fireman, or whether you just like doing what you do in your own independent businesses. Try to do it with peace, love, and harmony. That's been my theme, and it's always going to be my theme on any show that I do. I'm not out to try to change anybody's political views. I'm not here to try to change anybody's mind about anything. I do know this. If we do not heal as a nation, then we're not going to progress like we need to progress. You know what I mean? And yes, I'm definitely rocking my star glasses that Funkin' Bastards got from Bootsy and Patty. Thank you so much. Love y'all out there, man. Y'all keep doing that. You guys set the bar really high, and we appreciate that. And, all your love and everything that, you guys do is truly, amazing. And that's really cool, and anytime you guys want to come on the show, love to have you, y'all know that. But anyway, let's get right to it. So first responders are hurting bad across the country for two reasons. Because number one, they're caught in the middle of this thing. They're in this war, biological germ warfare, whatever you want to call it. And they're in it because they chose healthcare and healthcare chose them long before this virus came along. So no matter what, now they're not going to just stop taking care of people like you and me. But what we have to do is do our part. So if we do our part and we, take care of ourselves a little bit better, we could take some of the pressure off them. If you look at some of the horror stories, some of these people haven't been home in days. Now imagine being away from your family for days and days and days, due to a virus that you have no control over, and yet you're worrying about bringing it home to them. And then that's an added burden, and trying to work in the medical profession under any type of stress is not cool. It's not cool. It's basically damn near impossible to not think about death when it's all around you every day. So let's be a little bit more kind-hearted. Let's be a little bit more patriotic. Bang, bang. Let's be a little bit more attentive to the needs of our community. And let's be a little bit more attentive to the needs of ourselves, because you don't catch COVID now and you don't feel sick now, and you may not catch it, and God bless you, but you may catch it down the line. When I'm out of the house, you guys know I always have my mask with me. It's not a big deal. I hate it like everybody else, but that's where we are. So, this is what we have to do. So let's try to be a little bit more considerate of others' opinions. we don't need to fight people over this, even though sometimes people have gotten really obnoxious and want to get in your face without a mask and all this other stuff and turn it into stuff and all of that stuff. But, it's not really about that at all. You can take anything and turn it into something negative, but we should be looking at the positives. We got a brand new funky president. What's happening, CC? There you go. We got a brand new vice president coming in. We seem to have, a lot of the cabinet members, coming in that have our best interests at heart, or at least most of us do see that way. And just because things aren't going to be perfect, do not expect things to be perfect. Do not expect people to things just to go back to normal and all this stuff to go away simply because we're changing administrations. That takes time. Administrations that come in always have to change a little bit of everything to begin with anyway. And now, I have my allergies. And now with this COVID thing happening, it's twice as bad. So we have to give them time. But in the meantime, we can do our part. We can help our neighbors. We can, try to stay out of harm's way. If we don't have to go out, we don't need to go out. We can try to do that. We can also try to understand the hatred and the political climate that we're in and try to squelch some of that. So for everybody out there, if you guys, ain't feeling my show, that's fine. I'm going to love you anyway. If you're feeling it, I'm going to love you. So the different social media platforms that are out there, some of them are for very, very good. Some of them are for very, very bad. So if you're into something that in your heart of hearts is not feeling right inside, chances are it's not for you, to do. And chances are you should stay away from it. Hold on one second. I just want to make sure you guys can hear me better. Chances are you should stay away from it because it's not healthy. And if things aren't healthy for you, they're only going to make you sick. And you don't need to be attracting negative, unhealthy energy, especially since we're already sick. And I want to give a shout out to my good spiritual advisor, Chrissy Key Rollins, who keeps me in the crystal flow. You know what I mean? She's mad cool with that. She takes care of me. And it's really cool. Thank you, Chrissy. That's really kind of you. And also Tish Oakley out there, Earth Monkey Energies, I try to stay around these spiritual people and positive energized people because it helps my spirit. And all my prayer warriors last week, you guys really helped me out. You came through. I can't thank you enough. I love each and every one of you for that. Life ain't always going to be easy, but it's the hard times that make us appreciate the good times, I guess. You know what I mean? So if you're out there and you've lost somebody due to COVID or just in general, or if you have an anniversary of, somebody that left this planet, went on to the next level, or if it's your birthday, or if you're feeling down or sad about something, always reach out to me. I'm always going to be here for you, for you. I'm only a phone call away, and you guys know how to reach me. I'm all over Facebook. And, never think that you're alone, because you're not. So I don't ever want people to think that way. Even though sometimes we all may feel that way, doesn't necessarily make it so. So, namaste, peace and love to all the first responders out there. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And let's get on with the show. So let's see what's going on in the world. I know we lost the actor, Tiny, and he was in a lot of great movies, and he was also a wrestler, and that was kind of sad. And we also lost another great actor that did stuff with Spike Lee, Danny Aiello, and it's like 2020, man, is showing us like it's taking people in record numbers besides the COVID. Going all the way back to, George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. And, there was another young man, allegedly, and I don't know all the facts, so I'm not going to tell you the story because I don't know the story, but he was coming home from the dentist with a hero sandwich in Ohio, from what I understand. I haven't seen the details of it. Maybe Mark will tell me later. And, something happened. There was a gun. There wasn't a gun. Did he have a gun? Who knows? And, and he was killed, so it's still out there. the racist climate that continues to fester, and the things that happen that make us wonder, why do we keep going through this cycle? What is it about this particular energy level, and what is it about this particular dimension that continues to cycle through with this craziness? As some of us are trying to do peaceful things, there's still some people trying to do that stuff. So it's like the yin and the yang almost. I don't know if one needs the other, but I was told that by a very wise woman that, this is the planet where chaos happens. And, it's crazy because years ago I was part of that chaos. I've learned over the years not to be part of it. But I think at some point as you grow, in life, and you learn certain things about life, you realize that, when you're doing things that aren't really the best things for you or the people around you, sometimes you just have to make the change for yourself. You can't wait for anyone to do that for you. And I think that's where we are now. I think some people are waiting for this massive thing to happen to change how they react and think and feel and all this other stuff. But truth be told, you can start that today. You can start that from inside right now, today, watching this show. And if you're watching, Funk Music with Zack on IBM.TV, know that, I appreciate you guys. And you don't have to comment. If you do comment, it's cool. If not, it's cool. Still going to be doing the show. I love what it is, and I love what I try to do, and, try to bring light to where there's some dark sometimes. So if you're out there and you just feeling some kind of way, sometimes know that you're not alone. And sometimes those dark feelings that get inside of you, you got to fight that off as best you can, and make sure that, you just try to do one positive thing a day, try to do one good thing a day. And then you put all those inches together, like Al Pacino said in the movie, Any Given Sunday, you add all those inches up. You know what I mean? Just add them up. That's what you got to do, and try to always, if you can, help someone else. Let's pull each other up instead of putting each other down. We need to lift each other up, because that's where we all trying to go anyway. You know what I mean? Everything always points toward the sky to get off this planet. A lot of us probably passing through this dimension are just here trying to figure it out, The quote Funkadelic, we are biological speculation sitting here vibrating, and we don't know what we're vibrating about. The animal instinct in me makes me want to defend me, makes me want to live when it's time to die. Y'all see my point? Yeah, I don't mean to come on strong, but I am concerned, and I know law and order must prevail. But if by chance the law of natures are just equal and square, then the law of nature will come and do her thing. She does not think. She thinks by instinct. Survival is a thing. You know what I mean? So y'all see my point. And I didn't quite get that right, but, that's what this is about. We're just all down here from a global perspective. You know what I mean? And Carl Sagan wrote a good book, and I always tell people about this book, and I like to read, The Pale Blue Dot. And I always refer back to that book because if you look at Earth from space, we are just a pale blue dot. If somebody was, a million miles away and they looked at Earth, they would just see Earth. They wouldn't see black. They wouldn't see white. They wouldn't see Republicans. They wouldn't see Democrats. They wouldn't see Latins. They wouldn't see Asians. They wouldn't see male or female. They would just see planet Earth. And that's what we need to focus on. We need to heal this planet, because if we do not, our kids and our kids' kids and our kids' kids' kids, will be in some dire straits. Okay. So having said that, and again, I'm going to bring on Mark in a little while, and we're going to chop it up. And today I got a hard out at 1:00. I got things I got to do. But, again, you're watching Funk Music with Zack on IBM.TV. Thank you to the IBM.TV TV dollar store. You can go there and check out all kinds of nice things and products and this and that. And here's something very, very important. 2021. I need you guys to stay tuned. That's right. As I said yesterday, we got some serious stuff popping. Black History Month is going to be big. We're going to drop some serious dimes. We're going to be raining threes on you. And, hopefully, as things work out, as they're starting to work out and line up, we got some heavyweights, that's going to be doing some sponsorship for us. And, we're going to be doing some different things. So I'm just dropping that out there for you guys. I'm not dropping any names. It's not necessary. But you guys pretty much know I run in them funk circles. So, we're going to try to just do as many funky, positive things as we can and get this thing turned around. Like Dumpster Funk said, turn this thing around. One of my favorite funk groups, by the way. Matter of fact, my man Tony Hall just had a birthday. Happy birthday, Tony. I appreciate you, man. Can't wait to see you again soon. So, politically speaking, we're in a climate right now where everybody's opinion becomes fact. And opinions aren't necessarily fact. They're just opinions. Everybody has one. So in this discourse of how we're trying to make this transition, and there's all kinds of rumors out about what this man is going to do and everything. And, we can't stop him. We shouldn't even spend any energy. CNN, CSNBC, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, Fox News, all of those stations, nobody should spend one more second talking about this dude. It's not news. So stop making it news. It's not news. Okay? Nobody should spend one more second talking about what's going on with this crazy man. It's not news. It's old news. It's ridiculous. It doesn't need to be looped and duped 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, because all that does is mess up your mind. It's psychologically, subliminally seducing you. That's what it is. And see, it's funny, the subliminal seducer, the P-Funk thing. It's like he seduced people and then he continues to feed them the poison that continues to keep them trapped in. That's why I say it's a cult. And I don't care what anybody says. It's very cultish. It's like, it looks like a cult, walks like a cult, smells like a cult. It's a cult. You know what I mean? Now, people may like being in cults. That's their prerogative. This is a free country. But to the point where it starts to hurt other people, and then you become a detriment to the very society that we're trying to uphold and keep safe, that's when it's a problem for the rest of us. Like, most of us, we don't care if you're in some kind of cult. You know what I'm saying? I don't care. Just don't let it spread and leak over into what we want to do out here as far as like staying safe, staying healthy, and helping other people. That's all it is. It's no thing. We're not telling you not to be in your crazy cult. If you want to do that, just don't hurt others with it. Don't let that leak over. You don't have to be, trying to express how I should feel like you feel simply because you belong to that cult and I don't. All right. And also, too, when it comes down to voter suppression, which I'm still pissed off about, which nobody ever wants to seem to talk about, why are you continuing to support something like that? So to me, I don't get it. I'm not here to get it. I'm not here to understand what people think. I'm just here to do my part and spread light and spread peace and spread love. So, with the political thing that's going on and all of the issues that we have in this country right now, I don't think necessarily it's important to know how much an NBA player or a baseball player or a soccer player or football player is actually making in salary. I really think it's poor optics. I have nothing against people that make large sums of money. That's fine. But I don't really think we need to see that. And you still have people standing on food lines, and people are about to lose their homes and they can't pay their mortgages and people are dying. So imagine the trifecta. If you're sick, you can't pay your mortgage and you lose your home, and then you cut on the radio to get some information and all you hear is so-and-so made $80 million. Like, what's that about? Don't we have any more compassion? ESPN, Colin Cowherd, Stephen A. Smith, I don't care who you are, just Dan Patrick, whatever. Don't let these people come on and start saying this stuff constantly. If you want to do a little crawl on the bottom and say, yeah, so-and-so made this, whatever. But technically, I know I'm from the streets. We don't care, nor do we want to hear it. I talk to a lot of people, and nobody wants to hear about a basketball player making hundreds of millions of dollars when they're on a food line. Where is our sense of visual empathy optics? Okay, where is our sense of visual empathy optics and also sympathy? You know what I mean? And those people that are out there that are doing, really, really great things, I applaud you for that, because you guys are putting it out there. You're letting people know you're ready to help many, many people. You're doing benefits, and you're doing concerts, and you're doing online shows, and, you're trying to send money to people that, need it or whatever. So that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying, when it comes to sports is a form of entertainment. All right. So in that entertainment field, just for now, back up a little bit. Next year, you can put out all the stuff, in my opinion, that you think you need to put out. I don't know why it's news anyway. I personally never want to know what any one person is making in their salary. I really don't, because it's irrelevant. What one person is making. It doesn't make me any less of a person, doesn't make you out there any less of a person. So don't be judging your life by what others are actually doing and what you think or where you think you should be. You have the power and the ability to change that yourself. Sometimes we need help, and we all do. Make no mistake about it. I wouldn't be sitting here right now if so many people didn't reach out and help me over the years, and that's a fact. So, we all need help. But in turn, don't feel bad about yourself, simply because, we're already stuck in these bad times, and you turn something on and you're like, man, oh man, what's that about? You know what I mean? Sometimes you just need to understand, like, hey, it's not necessary to dig into that. You know what I mean? Especially since we have a very, very important mission, and we're all in this mission together. What's up, Bill? How you doing, bro? I see you, bro. We're all in this mission together, and the mission is self-preservation, life, dignity, respect, and let's try to heal. That's our mission, and any little thing that you can do, little tiny things that you can do, that will help further and aid the mission of peace, love, and harmony, because that's what it's about: peace, love, and harmony. You're going to hear me say that theme over and over again. It's going to be my recurring theme for 2021. It's one of my mantras, and I actually believe in it. I actually believe that we can change the world if we choose to, one person at a time. Like Bootsy said, the power of the one. There you go. Right. So, I'm off my soapbox. I just wanted to get that out there. A lot of things that people feel inside that may be hurting them, they may not want to talk about. But this platform, you can always come on one of my shows and talk about this platform. It's always good. And like I said, we're doing some major things. We got some things popping. Just because you don't hear about things doesn't mean that things aren't going on. So a lot of times, it's sometimes you got to keep things close to the vest before you just drop them out there. So when you do hit the ground, you hit the ground running. You know what I mean? Especially when things kind of turn back to where we can kind of get back out and start touching each other again. Because I miss that. I miss hugging you guys. I miss kissing you guys. I miss just being around and hugging and feeling that. I'm a hugger, and I need that. A lot of us do need that. I'm also an empath person, and and that spirit inside me that does that live music thing. I need that stage to performer to audience triangle. You know what I mean? That's what I need. I'm missing that so badly. It's just, oh my God. And I know I'm not the only musician. Musicians, we get together online and we talk and we chat and we try to stay up, but we all miss doing that live thing. Those of us that love to do it, that live thing is nothing like it in the world. It's like a shot of adrenaline on top of steroids, on top of rocket fuel. It's just, and you ain't even got to be high to do it. It's just what that music and that sensation of that electric connection with that person in the audience that's just on the one with you while you hitting on the one and the whole place is hitting on the one. You know what I'm saying? That right there, that heartbeat of life, that beautiful thing in life that we share together, it transcends language. It transcends gender. It transcends religion. It transcends race. It just transcends everything. Music is the art of thinking without sound. And I'm going to say that again. Music is the art of thinking without sound. You know what I mean? So when you can connect with people, and our brainwaves are connected electronically, that's proven, when you can connect with people, man, doing music without even using words, and you speak another language, but you're all, you know what I'm saying? If everybody's doing that, that's one heartbeat. That's the pulse of the universe. And man, I miss that. Hopefully as we progress and we get to the point where we can actually get back out there, there's going to be so much funk dropping on y'all from every part of the world. It's going to be raining down funk. It's going to be pouring in. It's going to be coming up from the ground like P-Funk sowed the seeds, Nappy Head grew in the weeds. We going to be coming up from the ground up. Some people are going to be coming from the top down. Some people are going to be coming in from the sides. It's going to be so much funk immersed in this funky world, thanks to stations like P-Funk Radio, Keith Jackson, and, Brenda Honeybee Robinson, and, Robin Denson, Circle of P, and, Gabe Gonzalez, and, Larry Funkster Jones, and my man Philly Phil down in Texas on the funk bus, and all the other funk stations around the world, and Steady Groove over there in Germany, and Tanny Soul Sister, all of these stations that are playing this music that have been keeping it alive. When people are able to do live concerts and things like that, it's going to be totally lit up. And we are going to get back to that. We are, I've seen the future, and, we are going to get back to that. We just got a little ways to go. That's all, just a little ways to go, and we do have to get our children back in school somehow safely, because, I won't let my kids go back until it's safe. I'm sorry. I know they're hurting right now, and I love you, Kayla and Maya, and I know it's hard, but, your mom and I are like, nah, we're going to wait, we're going to wait. So, life right now, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I see it. My star glasses, yabba dabba dooza baba, tells me that yes, there's light at the end of the tunnel. We just got to be willing to accept where we are, and then move forward, and then just try to, work around all of the negative obstacles that are out there, and continue to do what we are, because we are warrior light workers down here spreading this peace and love thing, man. So, it's beautiful. I'm a glass half full guy, as you guys know, even though I get down sometimes like everybody else. But, I want to stay positive. I want to stay upbeat. And so let's look at it like that. And let's just take this thing day by day. Let's not worry about yesterday. Let's not worry about tomorrow. Let's worry about right now. You know what I mean? Let's worry about right now. I'm looking to see what time it is. Yo, Mark, man, why don't you jump in here? I'm not really sure what time it is. I don't even know how long I've been on the air. It seems like, what time is it? I can't even tell you.
It's 34 minutes after the hour of noon, and we just rolling along. I was checking out your conversation and what you were saying, and definitely was grooving with a lot of that information you were given. I do remember that Ohio case that you were talking about, and I'm still trying to figure it out, still trying to see what's going on with that. I do know that like you said, he was coming from a dental appointment, I believe is what they said it was, and he was carrying a sandwich, and somehow a gun got mistaken for a Subway sandwich. And I've eaten many a Subway sandwich, and I've never seen one that looked like a gun yet. So I'm still trying to figure out how you confuse the two. And apparently he did have a weapon on him, but he had a right to carry that. He had a carry permit and things of that nature. And apparently it wasn't, I don't even know if it was on him or it was in the house. But like I said, he did have the right to carry the weapon and everything, because he did have a carry permit that he was allowed to carry this weapon and everything. So that's one of the things that is going on. And then the other thing that you were talking about was the fact of this Kool-Aid that I know you talked about that yesterday as well, drinking and things of that nature. And, after we did the show yesterday, I was watching the news and I saw that a whole lot of those folks drinking the Kool-Aid were up there in D.C. marching around trying to overturn things. And I'm sitting there going like, y'all just need to get over it. the man has won. Biden has won. Like, I remember, as a kid, sometimes you would have that person that would be sitting there after a game and they did want to acknowledge that they had lost. Well, guess what? You lost. Get over it. Let us go ahead and move forward. Because
let me ask you this though, and this is not me making fun of anybody, but let me ask you this: how much money that they don't have that you think they spend on following this guy around?
Oh, I'm thinking they spent all kinds of money. I mean, some of these folks were coming from all over the country, so I know they spent money on either a plane or a train or somewhere to get there. And a lot of these folks are coming from very poor neighborhoods. I mean, a lot of folks don't understand that, yes, those of us in the African American community, those in the Latin community, those in even some of the other minority communities, the Native American communities, have been hit very hard by what is going on economically and with the pandemic. But there are some poor white folks that also got hit as well. So some of these folks that were over there marching are probably the same ones that are sitting there looking for their stimulus check, waiting for their stimulus check to go.
Yes, they're wasting so many resources because the resources it takes to have the police keep something secure is extra resources that those police could be using to fight real crime. Right. Now, what these people are doing, they have a right to protest. I just don't understand. Like, if I didn't have the money, I would not be trying to travel somewhere far away to protest like that. I just wouldn't do it. Now, that's just me. But I would be worried like, well, should I feed my family or should I go support a guy who claims to be a millionaire, billionaire, and whatever it is, he got more money than me. You know what I'm saying? And he got better access to health care. He lives in a golf resort. You know what I mean? Although he doesn't pay no taxes, so who knows? That's going to be going up for auction soon.
That's true. It's going up for auctions, but you're right about the healthcare and everything. You're so right about the healthcare. Because I was thinking about that even just then. Because you're right, he had the virus, or at least they said he had the virus and everything. And they brought an entire hospital pretty much to his home. I mean, the last time you got sick, and you've had a number of surgeries and everything in that in your life, when was the last time that they brought the hospital to your apartment or to your place of living?
I couldn't even get a social worker, Jack, let alone a hospital, man. I was begging for just come help me fill out paperwork. You see my arms jacked up. You know what I'm saying? Yo, I tell you, you're right, man. And getting back to, what they're actually talking about is a moot point. At some point, somebody, and I'm not going to count on Mitch McConnell because we all know he's he's second to the devil. But somebody like Mitt Romney needs to take the Republican Party back. Right. The guy that runs the Lincoln organization. You know that guy? He comes on, I think his last name is Smith or Schmidt, whatever, right? The Lincoln Project, right? He used to be Republican, but he makes a lot of sense. When I listen to him speak, he makes a lot of sense. And somebody needs to come along like that and refocus the Republicans so at least they can get out of the craziness line and get back into their normal insane line. Because all of the stuff is insane, it's all insane. Like how we do things in this country with the Electoral College and all this other stuff is outdated, is antiquated. The system is broken. How we get through it every day, I don't know. But my thing is this. I don't like it when your tax dollars, my tax dollars, your mother's and father's tax dollars, or people that are paying taxes, we have very little say over where our money is spent and how we can have access to it. And I think we need to change that. And that's the way the game is set up. It's rigged because no matter how much money we put in, we don't have access to say, hey, I don't want all my money to go for this craziness. I want it to go for X. Would you agree?
I would definitely agree with that. And I think that we got to have some folks getting some real time solutions and getting them right now. Because too many of us are sitting here in hard times and they're sitting, as we were saying yesterday, on the fat cat dollars that they've been getting. And they're not giving us the money that we need as the common folks and everything. I know that a number of folks that are in the artistic community, as do I as well. And we know a number of folks that are in other kinds of jobs, whether that's restaurants, whether that's a number of other things that are sitting here struggling on a day-to-day basis. How many folks do you know that have actually lost their jobs and are actually sitting there on a day-to-day basis, trying to just find enough money to go get, and I'm just going to go put it out there in the plain and most simple terms that folks can get out there. We got a lot of folks that are out there struggling, trying to get a McDonald's Happy Meal. That's all they're trying to get because they don't have enough money just to pound together enough change and everything.
That's right. Yo, speaking of which, right, this track that you're going to drop, Creepin', and you know, you can run that Bootsy information when you get a chance. Everybody out there watching, you know, I like this track. It's a hot track. It's off Bootsy's new album, Power of the One. And, you know, we're running the information at the bottom right now. And I need you guys to check this out. Go to the Bootsy store. The website is listed below, and you guys can get all kinds of funky goodies, some wine, some glasses, whatever, you know, shirts, hats, all kinds of stuff, guitar straps. Bootsy and Peppermint Patty got it going on, you know, so go check this store out. And a portion of that always goes to Music Cares Foundation. It goes to help out other musicians that can't tour right now, that you know, Bootsy and Patty help out. So right now, you know, I'm going to turn it over to Mark and let him load up Creepin'. And then, you know, we're going to run another track called If You Want Me to Stay. Again, disclaimer, I don't own this music, but I have permission to play it from Bootsy Colllins, the man himself, and Peppermint Patty. So go ahead, Mark, hook that up, man. Let's get it.
We're going to hook that up. We're going to hear a little bit of Creepin', and then, like you said, we're going to hear a little bit of Want Me to Stay. So we definitely going to check that out.
I love that Want Me to Stay jam, man. That's joint. You know, Creepin' is for my girl, Robin Denson. She said she loved this rock stuff, you know. But the whole album is smashed. It's just smashing it, man. Power to One, you know, Victor Wooten and George Benson and, you know, all these great people on there. It's just so insane, man. You're so insane. I love it.
Yeah, he's got some great stuff. There's no doubt about that. I'm a big fan as well. So definitely enjoy everything that he's got going on and can't wait to hear folks as they get ready to check out what Creepin' is all about. So definitely we're trying to make this thing happen and have everything going on and everything. So, we're having problems with the browser. That is not cool. So we're going to have to see what's going on with the browser because the browser is trying to act up on me. So we're going to see if we can't get around this because we do not like having that. And that is not on you or me. That is actually on the browser. So I got to know this. The browser is acting up.
I got to like, hey, come on, browser, shake it up. Let's get it right. Let me shake it a little bit.
Shake that browser and everything. Shake that browser up. Shake that browser up because the browser is trying to act really stupid.
And for those of you that did see the concert, Friday night Bear Creek concert, it was tight. It was tight. It was
tight.
Yes, it was. It was crazy tight.
That combines
two proven medications. We got this craziness and the browser decided to act really stupid.
Helps your body create less sugar, make more insulin, and remove some sugar.
So that was not supposed to happen either because the browser decided to act stupid. So we're just going to have to see what's going on over here because I want to get the creeping. So that's what I like hearing is creeping. And the browser decided to act stupid. So let's hit that.
There we go.
I am medicated for a chemical imbalance.
Bump it up.
There and think that I am crazy.
Zoned out, shine, they want you about left-hand cigarettes, sawdust out of my head. What's that creeping? What's that creeping? Oh, no, the city is sleeping.
I lost all my volume, Mark.
Feeling creepy. The way you treat me, you kind of freaky. A freaky dicky.
I lost my volume.
Freaky. Can you feel me? Looking for something to cheat. Now he's crossing the streets. out my feeling sheet. Bottle so Mother Mary Motor, a fatty flower florist. You hear me hit the haze house. Hot shadow about knock me out. 1, 2, L coast. The bricks start to talk over here. STONED is the way of the wall. I'm feeling creepy, the way you treat me. You're kind of freaky, a freaky dick.
I got no volume. I'm going to go out and come back.
The city is sleeping. Loud shadows of the night. Start to talk over here. STONED is the way of the wall. I'm feeling creepy, the way you treat me. You're kind of freaky, a freaky dick. You're nothing but a freak. Looking for something to cheat. Now he's walking the streets, coming out my selling sheet.
No, that's creeping. That's tight, man. It was weird. Sir Nose tried to not let me hear it, man. And
I know Sir Nose tried to mess with you and everything, and tried to mess with us with the browser and all things. I got this crazy note that I've never seen before where it said that it could not get to the browser, and I'm sitting there going like, Sir Nose was trying to mess with us on that one and everything. But David Brooks, your good friend, was messing with both of us because David was saying that he said hello to both you and me, but he also said that I wanted to go creeping, and he was laughing out loud. So your boy David is trying to mess with me. So I know that David likes to have fun with folks. So that's all right. I don't mind the folks having a little fun with me.
He knows you. That's what I'm gonna say. He knows you. Yo, man, run that track, man, if you want me to stay. See if we can get that up. Again, we here hanging out with my man Mark Lee. David Brooks on the line, Dr. Brooker Stein, worked with Napier Funk Army for a long time. I love you. Always dropping me a line, so it's all good, man. Yeah, if you want me to stay, this track is tight. Larry Graham is on this, and this is a Sly song. And they did it over, man, and they crushed this, man. Bootsy Colllins, man, you're a genius out there, man.
Cool. We're going to check this one out, see if we can't want me to stay going on and everything. So definitely looking forward to that. It'll be a good one.
And don't forget, shop at the Boot Cave, y'all. Go to the boot store and pick up some funky Bootsy goodies for all you good girls and boys and all your funky toys out there. You know what I mean? So go get some of that stuff. There's plenty of merchandise and everything else. So let me get back in my mode. I had to put on my real glasses so I could see, but now I can get back into my party glasses. You got
to get back in those party glasses and hold on a second because I got that same crazy note again. So like I said, Sir Nose is trying to mess with us today. So we're going to do the same thing that we did before. We're going to go out and back in, and hopefully the second time around, it will work. Since Sir Nose is trying to send me crazy notes about can't get to the browser, and I'm sitting there going like, I'm staring at the browser. How come y'all can't get to it? So it's just trying to mess with us, but we're not going to have that. You know, one thing that me and Zack don't believe in is stopping the madness. So we're going to find a way to get around it.
Always, you know, you can't stop the funk. It's like water. It's going to flow like it needs to flow. You know what I mean? And y'all check out what's going on, man, in the funk community, because 2021 is going to be raining funk.
I'm gonna be myself. If you want me to stay, I'll be around today to be available for you to see. All about the and you know, for me to stay here, I've got to remain. You'll never be in doubt. That's what it's all about. You can take me for burning fire. Forget reaching me by phone, cause I promise I ain't gonna go around. When you see me again, I hope that you have been the kind of person that you really are now. You've got to get it straight. How could I ever be late when you're my woman taking up my time? I guess I wonder
Yo, that's crazy. That's just sick. The Funk Meisters, man. Let me tell you. Woo, my God. Don't get no better than that, man. You know what I'm saying? The Funk Meisters of the world. Yo, let me tell you. I always did love that song. It's such an amazing song. And Sly, you know, and what Bootsy and Larry and you know those lovely folks just did on that track, man, is amazing. It's just so joyful to hear us being able to relive that kind of feeling again. But when Sly was writing all of that stuff, people that aren't old enough to really understand what Sly actually was doing and what he did, he changed the way it was being done with his songs. Every song was like a hit song on the album. You buy the album and it's like, 10 songs and 8 of them were in the top 2 or 3, being played back to back to back to back on AM radio back in the day, at least in New York anyway. But
I think that was the way. I think that's the way it was all over the place. And like I said, you're so right, because oftentimes folks that know the music business will know that there was those A songs and then there was the ones on the B side that were on the other side that weren't always as good. But whenever I heard Sly Stone or Larry Graham or any of those other ones, I can't think of a bad cut on the albums. They were all smoking, from like the first one that you laid down there to the one at the end. So I don't think that there was truly an A and B side in my mind with those kind of like masterful groups. And you're right, a lot of those in the Funkadelic and in those kind of like strong R&B sounds, whether I would also put Earth, Wind, and Fire and a number of others that category. The Commodores, they just came with the fire all the time. And it's about coming with the fire all the time.
All the time. See, that's why, I had that attitude when you first met me. I said, listen, I was just raised on just trying to be as intense as possible when it comes to this music thing, because that's the kind of music there was. And in order to even play that stuff, you had to have some intensity to you. You couldn't just lollygag that stuff, and if you wasn't playing it right, the older cats would tell you. They wouldn't even let you play it. They'd be like, no, we'll get somebody else, so you had to come correct. But isn't it wonderful how Bootsy and Larry and, George Benson and Marcellus and all these other people can get on that one album that Bootsy creates and, put out all this great music, as well as what some of the other pioneers are still doing in this business. Speaking of which, I just want to make sure I plug, Next Exit. Make sure that you guys get on this disc. It's top, it's hot, it's an EP, and it's going to be top in every funk chart, and that's my boys right there, Michael P. And this is a toast to the Boogie, This goes out to this man right here, Boogie Munson over here. And I want to make sure people are aware of that, and also a shout out to my man, Curtis Wilcox, who takes care of all my artwork. Because Curtis, he's picking up where a lot of the Pedro Bells and stuff, kind of, pass that torch. And right. I got a hint for everybody. I'm going to drop this right now. Coming next month or the month after, I have arranged it where I'm going to have Ronald Stozo and Curtis on the same show. They have both agreed to do it. Yeah, man, it's going to be hot. I'm not telling people all my stuff I got planned for 2020, but I just wanted to put it out there because I spoke with them both. I said, listen, man, let's come together. Because I love both of their artwork. And Curtis obviously does stuff for me. Stozo's going to be doing some stuff. But, right now I'm not tipping what's going on. But I'm just letting y'all know that there's a lot of little – yeah. I'm going to have both of them on. And from a perspective of, okay – here was this, now here is this, and all that good stuff, working it together in the middle. And yeah, they both have agreed, and I talked to them. And, I've been touching base this past month with a lot of people that I want to, touch base with in 2021 to make some serious things happen. And just to talk about the funk, I want to bring as many of the West Coast Funketeers in. It's hard because my show's at 12. It's 9 o'clock there. But I'm trying to get Dawn on. I'm trying to get Amuka Kelly back on. I'm trying to get L.A. Maggots back on. I'm trying to check up on Frankie Cashwadi and see what's going on out there with their funk bands and Tony P. Funk Smith and all of them, man. So, Funkin and all y'all, man, out in West Coast. I didn't forget about you guys. I really do want to get you guys on, and maybe we can pre-record some stuff because I'll have more options coming in 2021. But, this funk thing, man, is universal. And that's why, my show is all about funk. Both my shows all about funk.
It's so much about funk, and it's so universal. It's so universal, like you said, and a lot of times it even influences other people's music styles and things of that nature. As many folks know, I'm a blues head, but I also love jazz, and yes, I also love my funk music as well. So definitely, I think that there's a lot of folks that we have to give major shout outs to, and I am a fan of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and definitely love
because George Clinton produced their first two things, man. Yeah, it came from funk.
Yeah. And speaking of folks that are, in my mind, have a funk background, and I know you were talking about folks that have passed on and everything, and I'm not even claiming to be the biggest country fan in the world. A lot of folks may be surprised at that because of the fact of the blues and country music being related and all of that. But definitely there have been some great country folks out there, and we lost a legend in the country music.
Yeah, we did.
Charlie Pride is definitely a true legend and definitely did some great music and definitely was a great storyteller, because that's what country music is all about. It's about storytelling and things of that nature. So I understand that if I heard correctly, it might have even been COVID related and things of that nature.
That's what I heard too. And you're right. And thank you for bringing that up, Mark. And I'm so sorry I forgot. Mad condolences to his family. Charlie Pride and Ray Charles were the first black men on TV I seen doing country music. They was playing country music. And I tell people all the time, it wasn't really odd for me to see them playing country music. But what was odd about it was that they were doing it so naturally. And people didn't understand, like, these are black guys, how they do it. But see, it was just what they grew up on. They was playing all that stuff anyway around them. And like you said, Charlie Pride, man, him, Johnny Mathis, Dionne Warwick, who just turned 80 years old the other day, Nat King Cole, all of the black artists that were on television early on, Little Richard even, they all had to, even James Brown had to put this persona to make it palatable for white Americans to accept them. And the good thing about it is that they were the first ones to do it, and thank God they did it in the ways that they did it. Because Charlie Pride was totally different from Johnny Mathis, who was totally different from James Brown, who was totally different from Dionne Warwick and Diana Carroll and Lena Horne, and when television, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or right, when television started understanding the power of the black dollar, that's when you started, especially back then, that's when you started seeing more black artists on TV.
Oh, yeah, they definitely understood the power of the black dollar. And, the black dollar is still a major force in the world right now. We spend a lot of money on entertainment. We spend a lot of money on a number of other things. Unfortunately, we are not controlled as much as we used to, because we started some things back in the day like BET. And of course, I'm glad that Oprah got owned, and there are some other things that are coming out like that. But unfortunately, we spend a lot of money, but we don't own as much as we should own in our own communities. And that's one of the things that I know a lot of folks would like to see changed in a number of communities that are out there, because we need to actually, not just be consumers. It's great to be a consumer if you got the money and can afford to be a consumer. I know a lot of us in this day and time can't even afford to be consumers because of all of us going through hard economic times. But definitely, if you got the resources and you're able to do it, I think it's very important for us to use our resources in order to not just have that consumer mentality, because too often we have that consumer mentality and we don't want to think about owning things. And that's why we have buildings that now aren't even under our control, that used to be under our control. The Mutual Building, which is a historical building right here in Durham, in the heart of Black Wall Street, is now owned by some folks that are definitely not out of our community and things along that line. So we've actually got to do a good job of holding on to the things that we created in the past and not letting them slip away, but also developing new things and supporting those things that are created and things of that nature. Because too often we let other folks wind up taking control, and then we don't do enough of actually having ownership. And like I said, I'm a big fan of ownership, both on the distribution side, the production side, and a number of other sides, because too often we don't have that in our world. So that's one of the things that I think that we need more of, is actually having that. And I know that's something that you've been concerned about, even in the music industry.
I'm going for it this year. I'm owning all my stuff. I'm not really working for anybody else. And the game is the game. No matter whether it's entertainment, no matter whether it's this or music or whatever, small businesses. But, there's nothing more satisfying than knowing you worked so hard to do something and you see the fruits of your labor. I may not have a lot of songs out, but the ones I have, I do own, And matter of fact, for those of you who don't know, and I want to thank BMI out there, we recently, after 18 years, have left the CSAC family. and now we belong to the BMI family, Nappyhead Funk Army. So, that's official. It's official, and you musicians out there that write songs, make sure you own your publishing and your writer's rights, and, make sure you get affiliated. It may cost a little bit in short term, but in the long run, you never know who's going to pick your stuff up. It may be for something as simple as a 5-minute commercial or something, but you never know. So this way you're covered. Make sure that you always have your stuff covered. And I learned this, over the years. But, thank you, Zack, because it was a wonderful 18 years. So now going forward, I'm riding with BMI, and, they're happy to have us. And, that's a beautiful thing for the Nappyhead Funk Army. And, again, there's ASCAP, BMI, Zack, whatever. There's plenty of affiliations. Just make sure your music is covered. What you write is important to you. It's your personal story. So make sure you have it. And one day, maybe I can have a catalog of 100 songs. Who knows? Right now I'm working on it, and we get ready to drop some new stuff too. So, that'll add to my already spindly repertoire. But, I'm grateful to even have that. So, you know what I mean? And I always
you're gonna be like McCartney and Lennon, and they'll be having contests as to who wrote the most, you or some of the other members of the band. Because, like I said, I have faith that you're gonna have as much as they do and everything. And by the way, I've got to give a shout out to somebody that is involved here on the IBM TV family. But I was checking out Facebook earlier and everything, and I saw that Gwen Wilson and her folks that are with the Shoe Crazy Wine Store have actually gotten into the Sam's Club. So that is a major accomplishment that they have gotten in there in Virginia, and that they're coming to North Carolina and Georgia. So you can get their stuff right there in Sam's. That's a major tip and everything. So definitely got to get that grind on. It's all about getting that grind on, and they are doing that on a regular basis. So when I saw that on Facebook, wanted to give them a shout out, and they do a show here on IBM TV on Fridays. Her and her daughter, as well as some of the other ladies, and it's a great show about what's going on. They share a lot of wisdom, but they also like to joke around and do things of that nature. So got to give them a shout out for getting that major corporate sponsorship.
And that's fortitude. Thank you for saying that, Mark. And congratulations, ladies, if you're watching. That's fortitude. And that fortitude is what we need to have, that fighting spirit. We need to have the spirit like your ladies, Gwen, and everybody. We need to make sure that people understand. Keep fighting for your dream, fighting for your rights, fighting for things that you believe in. That's the whole point of being down here on this planet. It's about the fight. Don't give up. If you get knocked down, get back up. Get knocked down, get back up. We all going to get knocked down. But those ladies, man, they persevered, man, and that's what's up. That's a beautiful thing. And when you told me that the other day, I didn't know about the Sam's Club thing. You know what I'm saying? Right. So I think that that's great, man. And you know what? We can end on that note. Again, go to the Bootsy Colllins store. Check it out. Thank you, IBM.TV, for another great episode of Funk Music with Zack. IBM.TV, TV dollar store. Go check that out. Lynn Shepard. And, thanks to Nick and Kim and Ann Kidd and Wynn. And, of course, my man Mark Lee behind the glass. Don't forget, in January, Dr. Tawana Anthony got a brand new show on IBM coming up. It's going to be tight. I think it's going to be on Mondays starting in January. And
I think you said Fridays, but either
it's going
way.
to be Fridays. Okay, it's going to be Fridays. So don't sleep on her. Dr. Anthony is a brilliant woman. She has books out and everything else. So, you guys can always find her. As a matter of fact,
hold on a second.
That's her book right there. So, yep. Dr. Anthony, we plugging you. All right. If you watching, that's her book right there. Fact,
we both got a copy, so we're going to go a double copy. Zack, let's do that copy again. We got to get the double copy.
Is your copy signed?
Yes, my copy is signed as well.
All right. That's good. Yeah,
got a signed copy. I know yours is signed as well.
Yes, I'm showing my signed copy too. Hey, don't leave me out.
We both got signed copies, so that is a great thing.
Copies, Zack.
That's right.
So that's a beautiful thing. And on what everybody's basically trying to do in life that care about things is to make life better. That's all it's about, man.
That's what it's all about. Trying to make life better and everything of that nature. I know that you got to roll. I know that they might want.
Yes, but I'm going to run Carolina the Bells on the way out first. So you run what you got to run, but we going out to Carolina the Bells. My favorite Christmas song. Again, I love y'all. Thanks for everybody tuning in. It's been a blast. We always going to be doing something. You'll find me somewhere on some platform, somewhere around the universe. Stay tuned. Black History Month is going to get seriously funky. And we dropping some serious stuff, and we're going to be having some serious people that's going to be down with us doing some things, because we're in the process of creeping. So don't sleep on it. Plus 2 new music by the Nappy Head Funk Army. Mad shouts out to Number 9 and my boys, my whole crew, and my girls. And Tanya Tiet, I do want to get you on the show. I know you're out in Arizona doing great things socially, actively, and musically. But, sweetie, I still love you, and I want to get you. Love y'all. Take us home, Mark.
All right. So we got that going on. If you want to go out with that TC Flash, we're going to have that going on.
But I'm coming back with Carol on the Bells, just so you know. Or you want me to do Carol on the Bells now and then TC Fly?
Let's do Carol on the Bell and then TC Fly, because I think that's what we need to have going on first.
My favorite Christmas song. Merry Christmas, y'all. Ho, ho, funky ho. Come on! North Carolina, New York, New Jersey, Strong Island, Tennessee, Baltimore, D.C., Florida, North Arizona, North Dakota, South Dakota, Utah, West Coast California, New Mexico, Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Alabama, Dubai, England, India, Germany, Australia, down under. I love all y'all around the world. Ohio, Detroit, woo! Jersey, home of the P-Funk, y'all. This has been Funk Music with Zack. Hope y'all have a beautiful, beautiful day. Enjoy, y'all. It's all good in the neighborhood.
It's all good in the neighborhood. I know you got to get out and get that hustle going on and everything of that nature. So we're going to get ready with Tsitsi Fly and all of that. So I know folks will definitely be enjoying that. And then in a little bit, we'll see if anybody shows up for the roundtable. If not, we'll just have a bunch of PSAs about shows that exist here on IBMTV.tv and all of that. Because I know that at 2 o'clock, I need to check out some sports. And by the way, Zach, my fantasy football team did horrible. I went down last week in the playoffs and everything, so I did not manage to win that game, so I have been eliminated. I will not be the champion. Made it to the Final Four last year. I guess I'll have to make it to the Final Four next year, but this year it is not a Final Four round at everything, and it doesn't look like there's any prize money at all unless I win the Survivor pool.
I'm sorry, my Jets only got to lose 4 more. So I'm tanking for Trevor. And now the word is Bill Cowher may want to come coach the Jets. So if we get Trevor Lawrence or Bill Cowher, I actually will have something sports-wise to look forward to in 2021, But, yo, man, that's beautiful. And, again, disclaimer, I do have permission to play all the music that I do play. I don't own any of it, so just so y'all know, except for the music that is actually mine. And also, too, I had permission to play Bootsy Colllins tracks and everything, as well. So just so you guys know, I'm not trying to pirate or bootleg anything. This is not a DJ show. I just like to have funk music around me when I'm doing my show. That's all. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it's all good. Take us home. And TC Fly, written by Mr. Kyle Willis. All right.
Sounds great.
Kyle Willis, John Willis's son. So, TC Fly. I'm out.
And that wraps up that particular edition of Funk Music with Zack. And like I said, we're going to see if any of the folks come around for the roundtable. But in the meantime, we're going to just keep a conversation going on about some of the things that are happening in our community and with our community and all of that. So definitely, and when I say the community this time, I'm talking about the community of shows that exist here on IBMTV.tv. So we're going to see about anybody showing up. I know that Win Fong told me that he had sent out an invitation to somebody to appear here and see if they want to learn more about what goes on in the roundtable. I had also sent out an invitation to a young lady that is involved in the modeling and acting career. So we're going to see if any of those folks show up and if they have got things that they want to share as well. If not, we'll just tell you about some of the things that are going on. I know that we've got a youth panel that'll be taking place on this coming Wednesday. That'll be as part of our online dinner party, and we're definitely looking forward to a very interesting conversation that they're going to share with us and all of that. So that'll be coming your way in a matter of 3 days. I still got to get in touch with the lady from Colorado that has given us a number of her folks that'll be talking about the issues that they are concerned about and all of that. So definitely we're looking forward to that conversation and more. So definitely we're going to see what happens in that regards, and then we're going to continue going on and seeing what happens in that regard. So definitely we're just going to continue things moving along and seeing what goes on in that regards. But I understand we've got somebody that has joined me and everything, that being Captain Darrell Hervey. So it's a roundtable discussion, and we just have these on a regular basis. So I'm going to bring in Captain Darrell Hervey now that we've had the funk music show in, and see what he's all about and what he's got going on, and learn a little bit more about that. And then we may have some other people popping in doing the roundtable as well. So definitely we'll keep that in mind. And this might be the person I'm looking for with Win and everything. We're definitely looking forward to learning more about what Captain Darrell Hervey has got going on and some of his thoughts about things that are happening in the world. How are you doing, Captain Darrell?
I'm good, sir. How are you holding up?
Doing good. It's a interesting day here in the neighborhood. Of course, folks are trying to pay attention to what's going on with the virus and a number of other things that are going on. So tell folks a little bit about yourself and a little bit more about what you've got going on. Usually we have some of our producers and folks that pop in. Sometimes it can be as many as one. Sometimes it can be just me. But we'll see how things go. We'll see how it plays along and all of that. But tell folks a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what you're all about, and then we'll just have this conversation until probably around the 2:00 hour, and we'll see how things go.
That sounds good. Yeah, I appreciate it. Well, I was invited here by Nguyen, Mr. Fan. Right. So, I'm pretty new. I've been doing a lot of research. I've seen actually some of your shows too. So, okay. I'm learning it. I'm a fan. So, mostly my background is law enforcement. I'm originally from Detroit, so I worked for Detroit Police for a while. I was a detective in Baltimore City, major crimes, homicide investigations. And at the same time, I've been in the military for a while. Started in the Navy, did some naval intelligence, and currently I'm in an Indiana Guard as an intelligence officer. So been doing a little bit. So, it is a lot going on, not just dealing with the virus, but some of the social climate as well. So
what's your take on what's going on with the social climate and everything? Because like I said, I know a number of folks have been paying attention, even seeing what had happened in that Ohio case. And a lot of folks are still trying to speculate or guess what was going on in that regards. But what is your take as to how things are going in the social climate? Because I know a lot of times law enforcement doesn't always get the respect that it should. And I know that that's one of the things that even Zack, who was on before, was talking about, is how we need to have respect for the first responders, whether that's police officers, whether that's fire officers, or a number of other folks. But as you've worked in a number of these fields, what is your thoughts about how law enforcement is being treated and just about youth in general? Because my younger brother works with some of our youth here in this community, and I know that sometimes, sometimes they get that label of being at risk, and sometimes they don't even like that label. They'd rather just be dealt with on a one-on-one basis. But what are some of your thoughts?
Right. Absolutely. Well, can I ask, where are you located?
In Durham, North Carolina.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Home of John P. Key. All right.
Yeah.
So I think that it's complicated. I mean, it's always been this complication with law enforcement. Growing up, of course, in the 80s, and it was a different kind of respect for police. Police were a lot more visible, especially in the community. You knew who your officers were working in your neighborhood. And what's happened as time and technology have advanced, we've gotten away from that personal interaction, a lot of it. So it is complicated, but I think that one of the biggest problems, and being of course, a black man in blue, is that we've lost the ethical and moral responsibility of being law enforcement. It's faded away, and they're expected to do a lot of work. And it really has nothing to do. People talk about training and, they need to be retrained and all of that. You get excellent training in the police department, and it's continuous. The problem is that the officers themselves are not reevaluated. Right. So take, for example, in Detroit. In Detroit, 1 year of policing is probably the equivalent of 3 years in some suburban or remote community, because you're constantly under this pressure. So, okay, I might pass my psychological coming in as a new officer, but you never take one ever again unless you're involved in a shooting or something. So there needs to be a constant evaluation and release of all of that pressure and tension that police have. There's some really good officers that make bad decisions because they're corrupted. Right. 5-10 years in, they're dealing with the same domestics, the same people, and they're getting no respect for it. But they have no release because you know what? Who do they talk to? They talk to other police. Right. So that's good in a way, but they never get another perspective outside of that world. So that's one of the biggest problems we're having.
Yeah, I can see that would be a big problem and everything. I was wondering, what is your thoughts about, because there was a big push lately, and there's a whole thing about this whole defund the police and everything. I know a lot of times when folks hear that term, they're thinking that they want to just disband the police force. Now, what I'm hearing more people saying is what they really would like is community policing or more community policing, and they'd also like to see maybe some less money spent on some of the what I call high tech kind of equipment that come out of the military and things of that nature. But I was just wondering, when you hear terms like defund the police, what is your thoughts about that? And do you agree that it's really more of a push for community policing, and they probably should call it that instead of defund the police?
Right. That's interesting. We can't really afford to defund the police. The issue, plus people, like you said, they just don't understand what that means. The difference between defunding the police and abolishing. Some people think those are synonymous. Where the money goes is what matters. Right. Again, some of the high tech stuff, I mean, that's great to have body cams because of, transparency and all of that. But we need to get back more to the culture of policing, to the officers themselves, treatment. They have the highest rates of divorce and alcoholism. Those things need to be addressed. I mean, that's part of the reason why some officers act the way they do. You got all that tension bottled up and you're carrying You can't be expected to go into a house and be a domestic counselor and solve somebody's problems in 10 minutes. It's impossible. Right. But you carry all of that with you. So there needs to be redefined. As far as community service, community policing, that's a new term to me. I mean, it's not new because we've been using it for years. But when I started, it was every officer's job to police the community, to know who the 80-year-old, woman was on the street, Miss Jones down the street, and to know who your neighborhood dealers were, because there was a mutual respect. They know who you are, you know who they are. When I was in Baltimore City, I used to go out on the corners and I say, look, it's 11 o'clock. It's time for church. I don't want to hear about anything happening on these corners until after 1 o'clock. Right. And we've gotten away from that. Even though they're criminals and things, they exist. We exist, and there has to be just a better communication, more emphasis on the personal aspect and not get lost in this technology. It is great. I tell you just really quickly, one of the great things Chicago is doing is they have an organization called COPA. It's the Civilian Office of Police Accountability. Mm-hmm. That is a separate government organization of civilians that are trained to be investigators, and they investigate all police, basically major like police-involved shootings, things like that. So they took it out of the police department, training. I mean, it's lawyers, former police, all kinds of people, but they're trained to look objectively and they take all of the civilian complaints, brutality. So it's out of the police department, but it's still regulated and it's objective. So if more cities would do that and have more civilian involvement, bridge that gap, then I think we can deal with these issues a lot better.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, what do you think about the whole concept of like having, because I know a number of times, and you mentioned it earlier, police will come and respond to issues of like that are domestic violence or things that are having more to do with what I would call social issues. And there are some folks that feel the police don't have enough training in that, and they would like to see maybe like psychologists come with the police officers or things of that nature that could actually maybe diffuse those situations. Do you feel that y'all have enough training in that area in the different cities that you've lived in, whether that was Baltimore, whether that was Detroit, or would you rather have somebody like a counselor come in these situations and maybe help y'all diffuse them?
I think it's a great idea. I think there's a city now, I can't remember where it is, but they're actually, it may be New York, and they're trying to determine if they want to send mental health teams out on a lot of these calls and not even send police officers. I don't think that's safe because remember, it's a flip side. They're not trained in law enforcement either. So if something gets out of hand, I've had people with mental issues that have pulled knives out on me or done something like that. I can pull my gun out and that does nothing, but I pull that taser out. They know what that is. And it has a whole different impact, as far as de-escalating the situation. But there needs to be a blend. Police, again, we get a lot of training, but unfortunately it's reactive. It's not until something happens that we get it. So after Rodney King in Detroit, we had an incident with Malice Green. It was a guy that basically was walking down the street. These two officers pulled him over and they got into it. He wouldn't open his hands up. They killed him. They beat him to death with a flashlight. Right. So, but he wouldn't open his hands. So he didn't have a gun in there, but it was just a mess. So, and he was black. So this is right after Rodney King. So, it was like really bad. But the problem was this, the police department at that time, we didn't carry pepper spray or any intermediary, only like SWAT did. We didn't have tasers or anything like that. So what they did was, instead of retraining, they bought these plastic flashlights, which was just probably not the best, but it was a knee-jerk reaction to it. Right. And it just took years to get to talk about mental health training. And, so it's a process. We could always use more training, but again, it's got to be that joint community training. We need to have more civilians teaching at the police academy, maybe.
That makes sense. What is your take on what was going on in Ohio? Me and Zack were talking about that earlier, and we've heard different mixed reviews of what happened in that incident. As a law enforcement officer, what have you heard about what happened in that incident? Because, we've heard everything from the gentleman did have a right to carry the weapon and everything to he was coming back and had a subway sandwich in his hand. So we've heard different kinds of stories, but I was wondering what you're hearing as a law enforcement officer about that incident that was happened in Ohio.
Right. So I heard a little bit, but maybe you could tell me, kind of what your perception is of what happened.
The perception that I heard was that a lot of folks are wondering whether the police followed the correct steps in going through that whole process and everything. Because, like I said, what the people in the community are hearing, and like I said, that was in another state, it was in Ohio, was that he was coming back from a dental appointment. They did hear that he did have a weapon of some sort, but apparently he also had a right to carry that weapon,
Right.
Permits that allows you to carry a weapon and things of that nature. And I've also heard that they found the weapon, but it wasn't necessarily on his person and everything of that nature. And then the other thing that I've heard was he was coming back from going out to get a sandwich,
right,
and things of that nature. So that's kind of what we've heard so far from the press. But I don't know whether you've heard differently from the law enforcement community.
Right. And that's, I did. And that situation can be anywhere. That could be anything. And you have a split second decision to make, pretty much. So, and now you have officers that are super edgy. It's us versus them mentality. Something needs to scale back, because if you look at Seattle, it's really getting out of hand there, places like that. So officers in other places like Ohio are thinking, okay, well, we can't let that get out of control like that here. Or they're getting scared. They want to go home to their families too. Right. So it's really hard to kind of Monday morning quarterback those kind of situations. Did the guy comply? We don't like hand movement. That makes us nervous. Look, this is what I tell people all the time. And I think people need to understand this. Do you want to be right and dead, or do you want to be a little bit more humble and address your issue later? If he was in a situation, no matter whether he was right or not, that's not the time to argue with the police, unfortunately. It's bad. It's a bad culture, but that is just the fact. I've been in situations like that. I've been pulled over, and I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, or maybe I had a little something, or they may have been profiling me. And we'll go through it, the routine. I'll put my hand, do everything I'm supposed to do. And then halfway through, when I pull my license out, I might tell them, hey, I'm letting you know I have a weapon, or I'm a police officer. And they'll say, well, why didn't you tell me that first? I said, well, why should I have to tell you that? That's not important. If you didn't have a reason to pull me over, it doesn't matter that I'm a police officer now, so again, the mentality and the culture needs to change, but it has to be constant. We can't send them to a 6-month police academy and not address it constantly. So again, it's kind of hard to look at those situations, but people are not happy right now, on either side.
Right. I can definitely understand that. I've actually got a cousin who's a Georgia Bureau investigation officer, and he's been there for a number of years. So he's actually out in that area and everything. And I remember when one of those incidents happened, and I don't remember which one it was. It was before George Floyd. So it might have been Trayvon Martin, or it might have been one of those other incidents that it was a number of years back and everything. And I remember him saying something similar to what you were saying, which is that a lot of times folks will say, why did they have to shoot to kill and things of that nature? And he would oftentimes explain about people's adrenaline and things of that nature. So he's like saying that, if you shoot people and you try to aim for say their kneecap or something else, that you may have even worsened the situation, because if you don't try to do something that'll at least incapacitate them, maybe not necessarily kill them, but at least incapacitate them, then you might have even created a worse situation. So that's one of the things that he was sharing with our family members, because there were a number of folks that during that time were feeling that the police officers, and like I said, I wish I could say that it was absolutely the Trayvon Martin case, but it was one of those cases, and he was definitely giving us more of the police officer perspective, and he was saying that as one that has gone through that training, that sometimes you have to definitely try to incapacitate the person, because if you don't, then the situation might even be worse.
Right, and people have to remember, we're not trained to wound people. We're trained to stop the threat. Right. So we're trained to shoot center mass. That's that's the biggest, the largest target area that a person has. But the game is over when they hit the ground. You're not, unless they're a continuous threat and they're shooting at you from the ground. That's it. You don't continue to use excessive force at that point. Whether you're using a baton or a taser or anything like that. So that's how we're trained. We're not trained to shoot people in the leg. It's dangerous. If you miss and it ricochets and hits a citizen or something, you're not covered by that. So the other thing people need to understand is that there are a lot of people buying guns now, like everybody is. Everybody's buying guns now. And when you're shooting, let's say that you buy a weapon, you go to the range and you're 100% every time. When you're in a shooting situation, you automatically, off the bat, before you even pull the trigger, lose 30% of your ability to shoot. So that means if you're a 100% shooter, you're at 70 already.
Wow.
So if you're a below average shooter, if you're shooting 60% at the range, you're down at like 30% now. So that means your bullets are going all over the place because of the pressure and the stress. So we train gross motor skills. We train to do that and stop the threat. It's just almost automatic that we do that. And people need to remember that that's what we're trained to do. So if they say, well, why did they shoot him so many times or something? If he still had his hand was waving or gun up or something, that's what happens. So.
Wow. And another thing, I know that one of our folks, and I wish she was here, but one of our founders, she's very much concerned about the way that police handle domestic violence. Is Kim Calhoun, and she's one of the founders of this particular platform and everything, and things along that line. So I was wondering if you could share some of your thoughts on that as well, because like I said, I know that that's something that she's oftentimes concerned about, is that we do not do a good enough job in terms of reacting to women that are going through domestic violence. And part of that might be the training, but I was wondering your thoughts on this, as I'm sure that Kim might be watching, or if not, she'll be watching later. But I knew, though, that that's a major concern of hers.
Absolutely. Domestics are the most dangerous calls you can go to. And it's because they're so unpredictable. And again, I think part of it is on the police side, it's the training, because we automatically, if I've gone to a house 5 times already in the last month, I already have a perception about what's going to happen. And it's hard to kind of dismiss that prejudice. But that might be the one time where it's the most dangerous. The second thing is it's very frustrating when you go in and you arrest somebody, or whether it's the male or female, and nobody presses charges, or they continue to go back into that situation. Right. So I'll go back and say it again. There has to be a bridge of communication with civilian professional counselors, or other resources with shelters or things like that, and the police, because the police are just going to be too burdened. They're not going to continue to deal with the same thing. And then once they start doing that, that's the time you go back and it's a homicide. Back in the day, we used to tell a guy to take a walk. And the reason why that changed is because they would come right back and end up, physically harming the victim or killing them. So in that's why now there's been a paradigm shift where somebody has to be arrested if there is any sign of physical abuse. Now, if it's just he say, she say, we have to deal with it. But if there's anything, he grabbed her arm, even in defense, somebody's going to jail. And a lot of times now the women are going to jail defending themselves because of that. So it can't all be on the police. There has to be a balance. Like you said, maybe there needs to be a paraprofessional that responds after a domestic call, or after a situated. They say, okay, listen, we have a protocol. We have we have domestic violence detectives in a lot of our cities, but they're so overwhelmed. But maybe we need to have a follow-up after that and say, listen, what's going on here really? Now that he's gone, what's going on? Why haven't you pressed charges these last 2 times? Again, it's really complicated.
Yeah, probably need more gas and everything. Now, one of the other things that really surprised me and everything, and it happened actually yesterday, I was going to eat at one of our local fast food restaurants, and a young lady was telling me about an incident she had with some teenagers, and the teenagers basically were ripping off the coin jars and things of that nature. That's why they don't have the coin jar at that particular restaurant anymore and everything. But then she was feeling intimidated by the teenagers that had kind of like do a smash and grab type deal and everything. And when she saw these teenagers doing this, and the police came and investigated and everything, she then caught the same teenager with another accomplice, for lack of a better term, and everything, in a restaurant across. And I think that they came and they had a conversation, but she was basically told, which shocked me and everything, because that they were juveniles, the police officers were saying that they really couldn't do anything. And I was thinking that there were like crime courts and things of that nature. And of course, this was here in Durham. But is that also the case that a lot of times that these juveniles are able to get away with things because they don't have the same kind of like punishment system as say our adult offenders do, and that a lot of times police officers around the country are letting folks go because they don't have but so much authority over teenagers or preteens and things of that nature. So I was just curious if you could explain that, because like I said, when she told me this, I'm sitting there going like, we think that they would at least get them to go to the juvenile system and things of that nature. But I was actually shocked when she shared this story with me, and like I said, I think that they are still out on the streets. Of course, the has done different things, like they now don't allow the tip jar, where that tip thing is and everything. And I think there was another incident involving like the passing of big bills, big counterfeit bills, so they stopped. But now they're not taking cash at all. But at one point, they were stopping taking large bills. Like I think they had stopped taking like 50s and 100s and maybe even 20s. But like I said, now they're not doing bills at all. But can you talk about how what goes on with our teenagers and whether they do get away with some more than we think that they do in terms of the criminal system?
Wow. I think that they do, but I don't think it's not because the laws don't exist. And some officers are going to be upset with me, but it's a little bit of laziness. And I'll tell you why, because processing juveniles and handling them takes twice as much time as adults.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot of paperwork, a lot of paperwork, a lot of time that you have to take off the street patrolling. So a lot of them, quite honestly, officers would just rather, if it's something petty or a small misdemeanor, just do a slap on the wrist and say, look, it's not a lot we can do. And honestly, the court probably will just slap them on the wrist. And now they're in the system. So it's one thing to counsel them and say, listen, I'm cutting you a break today. But it's another thing to completely ignore the crimes. This takes a lot. And I think a lot of officers don't want to spend the time. But I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm all for what's going on now with the police thing, and there are imbalances and social injustices. Black Lives Matter, all of that stuff is great. The problem I have is this: we're not taking care of our own communities first.
Right.
That bothers me to the core. I cannot believe we have millions of people marching on police brutality against other races. And our crime rates are ridiculous in Chicago. And I'm in Gary right now, and the police has done a great job of keeping control. But I don't see anybody outside standing on corners, making drug dealers hide and go run. I don't understand that dynamic. It bothers me to the core. My grandmother used to tell me to sweep around your own front door before you start going out. And again, I'm happy for the movement, because there needs to be a systematic change. But if we don't police our own community, we're too afraid to testify or call on our own kids and people when they need it the most, then stuff like, your friend, that's going to continue to happen. That's why we don't have the same neighborhood. Probably, when you were growing up, when you knew you were going to get two beatings, Miss Jones down the street, and then when you get home, you're getting another one. And I'm not talking about punishment like that, but just the oversight. So again, the community has a huge, huge responsibility in this too. Police can't be everywhere. That's what the whole purpose of neighborhood watch is.
Right.
But if we can get together and do marches on Washington, why can't we get together and go to Durham, or Raleigh or wherever it is? I don't understand that. And that's something that needs to be hit. I mean, we're flooded in the news with all of this other stuff and the president and all of that. That's great. But we got to still come home to our neighborhoods, and we still dealing. Drugs have not stopped. I don't know if people realize that. Murders have not stopped. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you. That's why I was glad that you were able to talk about these things and everything of that nature. I agree that a lot of times we don't even think about the black on black crime that still exists in our various communities and things along that line, because a lot of times we're concerned about a number of other things. But what are some of the reasons that you think that the black on black crime and the gang activity is still so prevalent? Because I would argue that definitely here in Durham, we have gang activity. I know that there's some in Gary and Chicago and things along that line. Is it because of the fact that so many of the folks, particularly our young, are struggling economically, or is it kind of the glory aspect of what they see on TV and the movies? Why do you think that these things are still so prevalent, the black on black crime, as well as the gang activity? Because I do agree with you that it is still very much prevalent in our society.
Right. I think it's a combination. There's a systematic breaking of it. Part of it is technology and not the kind of the cultural interaction that we have, with the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, different activities. Some of it is the flashiness, and the draw of making money quickly. But the other part, again, is oversight. And then there's another part. Culturally, we just have a whole 2 or 3 generations of children that are raising children. Mm-hmm. And you have, I read this book. It's a book called The ISIS Papers by Dr. Welsing, Frances Welsing. And she says that the development of a child stops when they have a child. So if you have a child that's 15 and they have a baby, they can only teach that baby what a 15-year-old knows. Okay. Because at the time they turn 15, they turn into a parent, which is a whole nother type of development process. So you have a 30-year-old with a 15-year-old, but they still have a 15-year-old mentality because they're teaching them 15-year-old principles. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And that's a part of the problem, too. So it's great. We don't have resources for those mothers to go back to school and to have, how do we fill in the gap for absentee fathers? What do these kids do after 6 o'clock other than do PlayStation and stuff like that? I'm kind of glad the pandemic hit. God has a reason for everything, because now people are wishing their kids could go outside and play, and get out. So, culturally, it's probably a huger dynamic than we can address. But I think a lot of the draw is we are not policing our own community. We've lost that sense of responsibility for other people's children. And I was in the airport, and I'm just going to say this briefly. This stuck with me because this is before TSA, when you actually could go and watch planes take off. So I saw two parents. I saw a black woman and her daughter, and a white parent and her son. And it was the way they dealt with them. They were climbing up on the chairs trying to look at the planes. The black parent, she was, girl, get down off of there, hitting her, sit down. I told you to sit down and be quiet, blah, blah, blah. That's a reaction. That's one reaction. Right. The white parent picked the child up, stood him up, and said, do you see what that is? And educated him. Right. It blew my mind. And I'm not saying, I'm not using a racial disparity. I'm just saying that's what I saw. We have to get, responsibility for each other. I have all girls. I taught them 2 things: what a man is supposed to be and what he's not supposed to be. Right. And if it's anything less, and that you're beautiful, and you don't need anybody to tell you that. So you don't need some guy coming in, sweeping you off your feet just because he's telling you you're beautiful. Right. My girls say, I know that. My dad tells me that every day. And we need that reinforcement, from men to girls, so that they don't fall into this cycle. So,
yeah, because the other thing I was wondering about, when you were talking about that, is I also, I'm 58, and I remember when I was going in school and everything, the hard drugs were starting to come into the school system. So this was like the 70s and the 80s, and yes, heroin was starting to come in, and some of the other hard drugs were starting to come into the system and things of that nature. But in terms of the weapons in the school, I mean, like I said, I remember one time one of our drug dealers that was in the school system, he got taken down by the principal and the assistant principal and a number of other folks, and was eventually probably arrested or done some sort of time or some sort of punishment of some sort or another. But I don't remember him pulling out a gun. Like I said, I think the best he might have done was pull out a switchblade, because switchblades were so popular in the 70s or 80s. I'm not saying folks didn't have guns in the 70s and the 80s, but it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. I mean, most people, if they were going to be settling of an argument, it was going to be fist to fist, or at worst, you might encounter a switchblade. You weren't necessarily going to encounter a pistol or a rifle or some of these high-tech weapons that folks are bringing in now. At least that's my perception. Like I said, I did grow up in a rural town and everything of that nature. Because even though I was born in Durham and I've been back in Durham for a number of decades, I grew up in a little town called Warrenton, and which is in northern North Carolina. But is that a misperception on my part, or was there less guns in the hands of our youth back then? We're only talking the 70s and the 80s versus what we've got in their hands now in the 2020s.
I think that access to guns is about the same, but you're right. It was just less violent. But I think, and again, I'm probably going to upset some people by saying this, but the problem is our children are weaker. They have worse social skills and intestinal fortitude to deal with pressure. It's hard because we had this pendulum shift. For instance, we used to use mental retardation as a term instead of, dealing with more sensitive mental health. But we've become so sensitive that our children have now become super soft and unable to deal with conflict. So now you have these kids who just pull a gun at a drop of a hat. They don't know how to fight or defend themselves. Somebody says something wrong to them, they're offended. They don't understand how to deal with conflict and pressure in general. And again, it's because we have this generation of children that just aren't equipped with that for whatever reason. Technology plays a part because, again, they don't know how do you go up and actually get a phone number from a young lady as opposed to texting everything. That's a problem. That is a problem. People walk with their heads like this all the time. They don't know what's going on around them. It's just unbelievable. So that, I think, is more of the problem than in them understanding how to deal with these issues. One of the things that bothered me, and I went to boot camp in the early 90s, but after I got out in the early 2000s, they have these things called stress cards in the Army. They've gotten rid of them, I think, now, but they had these stress cards where this guy is, the drill sergeant is yelling at you and you can actually pull his card up and he'd have to leave you alone. Wow. That defeats the purpose of training. Basic training is designed to break you down to your basic element and build you up with a team. Mm-hmm. That defeats the purpose. Now, I'm not saying there aren't abuses. It's the same thing with fraternities, with hazing. Right. Yeah, there was some hazing that was out of control, but the purpose was to break you down, to get rid of your pride, shed that off, let you know that you're stronger than you think you are, mentally and physically, and to build you up with a team. That's really what the purpose is. When we broke that foundation, when we break our spiritual foundations and things like that, our society, a lot of the morals have dissipated. So yeah, we're more fair and politically correct, but we're weaker as a result of it. And I'm not saying, I'm just as nice as anybody else. I'm not a gun fanatic. I don't have a bunch of guns because I'm a cop. I'm an ordained minister and a chaplain. But, my girls are stronger than some men that I know. And that's just how they were brought up. So, you make a good point. I think it's just culturally, we just had a different way of facing our fears and our danger and coping with them.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the case. And the other thing that I've been curious about is when I was back, I know these shows were popular maybe 10 or 15 years ago, but we also had shows that started really putting a good spin on police officers and things of that nature. But it also showed some of the negative aspects of police officers. And I'm going to even name some of those shows. But I was a big fan of Criminal Minds, which is definitely what profilers are and things of that nature. I was a fan of Law and Order and a number of those other kinds of shows. Do you think shows like that have helped the folks get a better understanding of what police officers are about? Or do you think that those kind of shows have hurt? Because like I said, Profiler was about one aspect of the police officer aspect. It was all about folks that go profiling, and of course I think they were all based in DC out of Quantico and things along that line. But those kind of especially oriented police shows of the 90s and the 80s and maybe even the early 2000s, do you think that those have helped folks understanding of police officers, or in your mind has it hurt them?
Well, that's a good question. You're going to get me getting some hate emails. They're not going to like some of my answers. I think it's done both. There have been some really, really good shows. I think about Hill Street Blues, some of those shows, NYPD Blue, like you said, the original Law and Order. The problem is that some of the newer shows do not depict reality. I watch Law and Order SVU, right? That is absolutely, it's inaccurate. And it's inaccurate because it's television and it's drama. You have a woman that's a captain that is taking the lead on almost every rape case that comes out. And you have a detective squad that they profile of two people. Two now, because what's his name is the state's attorney now. Or three, I'm sorry. That doesn't happen in real life. SVU squads, even if they're small, the detectives are out there working. Captains and lieutenants are administrative personnel and oversight. In the original Law and Order, if you look at that, the lieutenant and the captain, you didn't see them out on the street every day on those calls unless it was something big going on. That's how, and matter of fact, homicide, life on the street, is actually where Munch came from. In Law and Order, Detective Munch was there. Well, if you look at its predecessor, Law and Order was actually a spinoff of Homicide, which was a Baltimore-based show. Homicide was an excellent show because it actually depicted the life of a detective and police, the imbalance, the imperfection. When I was a detective in Baltimore City, I worked on The Wire. So if you've ever heard of The Wire on HBO, I think Michael B. Jordan was about 15 to 16 when I met them, and a bunch of other people, because I do movie training on the side. Right. And I train actors how to portray accurate police and military. That show was 80, 85, 90% based on real cases. That's why it's so good and authentic. That's also why it didn't win a bunch of Emmys when it was on, because it was too gritty for people to understand. Now people appreciate it, but that is one of the best shows. If you want to know what the life is, you know why? Because police officers have two sides like everybody. We're not all good. Not that we're all bad, but we have flaws. The same thing with criminals. The people that Idris Elba portrayed, he was going to college to become a businessman. Yes, he was a drug dealer, but there was another side of him that people saw that they could relate to. And we don't get that in these police shows. A lot of them, they're always imbalanced. And then, of course, people, they understand that we don't solve crimes in an hour. But they expect all this technology and crime scene techs to be. It may take you 3 hours for a crime scene tech to come out and dust for prints. You know what I mean? So you just have to kind of pick and choose. But there are some good ones, and then there's some not so good ones.
Now, what do you think? And I know we've actually got a show that is on IBM TV as well. That is called Weed Wednesday and everything. And I know that there's a number of folks that have been thinking about folks that are going into jail for what people would call nonviolent offenses and things along that line. So I know that that's one of the things that Jeff really pushes, is trying to get folks out for those nonviolent offenses. And then, of course, there's been a push around the country to decriminalize some of the what they call softer drugs, whether that's marijuana or whether that's a number of the other softer drugs. As a law enforcement officer, what are some of your thoughts about this whole decriminalization movement that is going on now? Because there are a number of folks that are trying to push. I think that there might be as many as, I'm not sure how many states, but I know there are a number of states that have already passed it, and they're trying to get even more and more states to pass it. So as one involved in this law enforcement field, do you think that that's something that will help y'all, or will it actually hurt y'all? Because I know that even during the time of like prohibition, when things got a little bit looser with alcohol, there are some folks that feel that that's actually what brought on some of the big organized gang activity.
Absolutely.
What your thoughts are?
Absolutely. I'm not going to say I'm a proponent. I do believe if it's done right, it would help for sure, especially marijuana. You start selling that and adding government taxes on it like cigarettes, that's a whole nother beast. So I'm definitely for that, because, again, we take some of the more frivolous crimes and complaints, and police don't have to address all of those issues. When I was a young patrol officer, quite honestly, it hurt people more for me to dump that bag of weed out and let it blow in the wind than it did to arrest them. Or to take that 40 and pour it out, that you just bought. So again, and again, you cut people a break, you educate them. You say, look, I'm cutting you a break this time because I know I'm going to see you again. Just remember what happened, or you owe me. There's a give and take to that. The problem is on the other side is the education. Okay, so now we have medicinal marijuana. That doesn't mean you can drive intoxicated. Now, that's a whole nother thing. And that part of it needs to be emphasized. So if we do, people need to still know there are some things that are going to still be illegal. We don't want people to think that, oh, well, I'm going to pull this card out and I'm operating under the influence and all that foolishness. So I'm all for that. Definitely, I'm an advocate for people who are in prison for nonviolent crimes. Child support, Lord have mercy. Our child support system is messed up. It's imbalanced. There are people who are like me, and I pay it, but I'm involved in my life. But if I'm a person where I'm reporting to the court constantly, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to, those are the people they're going after because they know where you are. They have people going after certain people that owe 30, 40, 100,000 in child support, but it's not as aggressive. And it's imbalanced. It's unfair. You're taking a working man working at Chrysler, you're going to lock him up because somebody got mad and now he has a felony and he's not working. Now, what good does that do? So if you want to talk about something like the equivalent of domestic violence, that's destroying and causing more violence than anything. We just had a situation in Detroit last week. A partner of mine called me up outside the 5th precinct. Guy, woman was just on this guy, lost his job, did all of this stuff, and was going to take all of his rights away. He shot her outside of the precinct, went to the precinct, took a high-power rifle, shot the precinct up. They chased him, and then they ended up having a shootout down the street and killed him. Yeah. For what? And he warned them. He told them, I'm going to kill her because women were or not some women, but she was using the child as leverage. So again, it's this ebb and flow of the domestic situation. If we're going to address domestic violence, we have to address it on both ends, not just the men, but the women. They can't manipulate the system and corrupt it so that it doesn't cause men to want to do right, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. And by the way, Brother Mike, that's what we call him, does the show Mind's Closet and everything. He was saying that everybody has their own weakness. The police trying their best to protect lives, but we should also help them in making the job better. And he also had this other thing that he put on there as well, which is, he can believe that the almighty U.S. child support is an imbalance. What happens to us in Nigerian child support? So he's actually in Nigeria, and I can think he's saying that it might even be worse in their country. So I think that's worse.
They might be chopping stuff off over there. Or they may be chopping parts off of who knows. It is an imbalance. And again, I'm not saying that we need to do right forcibly. Yes, you do need parenting. Guys need to understand that, okay, you can't go out and just have 10 kids just because you want to do that. There's a penalty for that. But there's a way that we need to enforce it. As law enforcement, it can't just be all punitive. It has to be educational. What we give tickets out for, speeding tickets and stuff like that? It's not just to make money, really. It's supposed to be education. It's not supposed to be punitive. It's supposed to be educational so that people don't continue to commit those violations. That's why they give you tickets and they'll take you to jail. Child support, that stuff needs to be that way. I'm sorry.
It's interesting you bring that up because that's actually something else I was going to ask you your thoughts on, because, we got a number of folks out here right now that are not wanting to wear a mask. A number of states, including North Carolina, have now gone back to tighter restrictions and things of that nature. And now we've got in certain law enforcement agencies that don't want to enforce those rules that have been put out in place and everything along that line. So I was wondering your thoughts when a governor or somebody puts out a directive and then law enforcement, for whatever reason, doesn't want to enforce it. Because I know that here you're supposed to get like a warning and the first couple of times it happens. And then I've heard that it should be or it could be as much as $1,000 fine. And,
right.
Actually pay $1,000 fine, then we might see a real quick, I won't say into the pandemic, but folks actually going ahead and, following the rules as they're supposed to follow them versus some folks being lax with it. Because I know that, that first time that $1,000 check hits you and you're already having a hard time surviving, then you got to count up $1,000, then you might decide that you want to wear that mask every day. You might be wearing you might be wearing mask in your house, and they've already said that your house is all right, but you pay that $1,000, you might be like, I need to wear this mask, from the time that I wake up till the time that I go to sleep. You might be wearing it. You got to pay those fines and everything. But I was just wondering, when you hear of these law enforcement officers or law enforcement agencies that don't want to enforce, what is your thoughts on that? Because I'm oftentimes shocked when I hear law enforcement officers saying that they don't want to impose it because of their own belief system or whatever.
Right. I believe if it's your job to enforce it, you should. I mean, you use discretion, you try and educate people again. But the problem is the inconsistency. You have every city, every state doing something different to a different degree. It's going to be almost impossible to enforce it. What can help is the consistency of the businesses, though. So if we have, I'll be going in like, okay, again, I'm in Gary. So they have the signs up, I go in with my mask, but, after a while, people just don't. And the owners don't enforce it. Now, is it because they don't want to get into a confrontation? Probably, maybe. Is it because the police don't do anything when they are called for that? So we have to meet in the middle somehow. If it exists and it's an ordinance, we do need to enforce it, encourage people to do it. Even if the owner says, look, hey, here's a mask right here. Give me $1. I'm going to charge you $1 for 50 cents for it. Anything to do to bridge that gap to say, look, we all need to comply with this because whether you agree or not, that's what we're supposed to do. But I'm not going to make it so big of a deal where it starts hitting you in your pockets. But then you have those people, like I was in a place to get fingerprinted for a handgun permit. And these people came in a group and they just refused to put them on. Now you're in their fingerprint, so you're like this close to somebody, but they just refused. And then, the people had to kick them out and they were saying, well, you're infringing on my First Amendment. Well, that's relative. First of all, you're in a private business, so they can do whatever they want to do for the most part, but they're enforcing their health. They don't want their people to get sick. So you eliminate a lot of that when you do that and you just enforce it. You don't allow people to go down the street to the other store where they don't care. They're just kind of isolated and they're forced to comply with certain parts of it. So it's an unprecedented situation right now.
And there are a lot of situations, and you actually mentioned one earlier when we started the conversation, which is the whole Black Lives Matter movement. And I have friends that have been involved with that here in our North Carolina area. And sometimes it does feel like they're having as you were just saying earlier about the police force, it sometimes feels that the protesters are also having an us versus them mentality and things along that line. And sometimes the them in the kind of dichotomy is unfortunately the police officers. I was just wondering what your thoughts are when you hear some of these folks that are doing these kind of like slogans or kind of like things that are geared specifically toward the police officers because they feel that the police officers aren't giving them enough due respect. So I was wondering when you hear those kind of like slogans or everything that are going out there about the police, what is your own reaction and how do you handle it when the protesters are actually specifically confronting the police officers in their own way? Protesters are actually the police officers in their own way.
Right. People have a right to be frustrated. I mean, none of this is perfect, but it's not reasonable to believe that we can't have police. It's just, who are you going to call when you really need them? And then people need to understand that police are public servants and they're in that job because they choose to be. So yes, we do have a standard, but they're doing a job that most people won't do. Have you ever been to McDonald's and you had to wait like a long time, but there were only like 2 cars in the line? And then you get up to the window and the person has an attitude. And it's like, well, okay, wait a minute. This is your job, whether you like it or not. I didn't do anything to you personally. So why are you getting on me? It's the same thing with the police. When we come to your house, well, you called me here. I'm doing a job. Why are you mad at me for calling to help you? Because I'm not, everybody's going to need help at some point. So there, whether it's the police department or the fire department or EMS, when you call 911, you want somebody to come. Can you imagine if I just decided, you know what, I'm not going to go to Mr. Lee right now. I'm just going to wait because I'm tired. Matter of fact, I got to go pick up my dog. I'm going to grab him first, go to the cleaners, then I'm going to go get him. It's our discretion. Absolutely not. So why does any other industry, have to do with that? And then the other part of it is we can't get so racially divided that we forget. We forget that we solicit these same people. So we have a large African-American population that go to hair salons and not just salons really, but beauty supply stores. Who owns those? Koreans, Arabics, Caucasians, some black people. So you're telling me you're so mad at these people, but you're going to go right and go buy this weave, or I'm going to go to, this car dealership and give them this business. Some of it doesn't make sense. So I guess there are extremes on both ends. Again, the issue needs to be addressed, but we can't get so far off topic that it becomes unreasonable. And it's the same thing for the white population. They can't get so like everybody's talking about the left. Everybody on the left. Well, everybody's not Democratic, first of all, but some people are independent. Some people are far left. Some people are conservative. But you still going to the corner Chinese store ordering food, but they're the ones that bought the coronavirus in here. How hypocritical is that? Right. We have to bring it down. Everything can't be global. It has to be some practicality to it. Again, like I said, I love the movement. Nothing is new. It's just a new version of Black Power. Right. It's an amped version. It's powerful, but I'm sure that the original organizers had a plan for that. Plus, those movements are not centralized. There's not one leader controlling everybody, unlike some other extremist groups like Proud Boy, where they actually have leadership structure. So you can't control. Some people are a little bit more aggressive than others. But again, no matter what that is, I just wish that energy would be turned back to us. We need to police ourselves. Hey, you're demanding more Black police officers in our community? Great. If that's a part of hey, defund the police until we get more Black police officers. Great. You know what to help with that? Releasing restrictions where you have to live in the city, because we don't have enough qualified Black applicants living in our urban cities to be police officers. That's part of the systematic problem. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know another thing that people are oftentimes concerned about is the fact that too often they feel that too many of the police officers are coming from the military background. I know you said you came from that background as well, but I wondered if you could speak to that as well, because sometimes people feel that some of the officers are coming in for the reason that you said, that they are actually concerned about their citizens, they're concerned about the job, they definitely want to do it for all the right reasons. But then there are some that apparently are coming into the job because they like, knocking heads when they were in the military, and they don't necessarily have that outlet and things along that line. So there is that kind of frustration that exists as well, because some people feel they're not all police officers, but there are some police officers that are in the job for the wrong reason. They're in that job because they want to, release that energy, and then tell folks to describe whatever that energy is for them and everything. They want to release it in some kind of way that they can't in the civilian world, the way that they did in the military world. So I was wondering if you've actually seen that, because I know that when I do, in addition to working for IBM TV, I have a podcast and the more audio kind. The guy that I do that with is Dean Geronimo. His real name is J.W. Piercy, but he's a corrections officer in New Jersey. Okay. Along the same lines of what you're talking about. He says that too often folks have to realize that there are, just like there are in society, there are good apples in law enforcement, there are good apples in corrections, right. There are also bad apples. It's a matter of trying to get rid of those bad apples. And sometimes it also seems that creates a problem, because sometimes if you know that somebody is doing something wrong, that the system doesn't necessarily always have a way for you to get them out, even though there are those of you that are good officers or good corrections officers, but there's kind of like restrictions as to what you can say or can't say, and therefore some of these people wind up staying in those offices longer than they probably should. And I just want to know some of your thoughts on that.
Wow, yeah, that's a good point. I'm actually in the process of writing a book, and it's called Exigent Circumstances, and it's about the destruction of police ethics and morality in American law enforcement. And I address a lot of those issues because what happens is you have a guy coming out of the military. He's going to do something familiar, maybe like police work. Right. For those like maybe military police officers or something, they don't necessarily get deprogrammed to adjust to civilian life. But that goes back to the constant reevaluation of the mental status of our police officers across the board. We have people who have no background in it, but that still are really bad apples. Well, how do they become that way? Were they like that before? Maybe, but there's a very small percentage of people that get past that background. It's really hard, the psychological, all of that, but they do get by. The majority of people that become corrupted is because over time, there's no check on them. They don't get a yearly mental evaluation or a reevaluation of where they are, or an ability to express the problems that they're having, or they feel that their peers don't respect them. Whatever the issues are, we don't get to address that because we're carrying everybody else's load. So that's a huge problem. But we do have an issue with, as far as the culture of policing and who we get in and who we recruit. Again, loosening some of those restrictions. I mean, it's even got to the point where, they look over marijuana possession and the convictions because they can't get any applicants, almost who haven't smoked or done anything. So it's just kind of getting ridiculous. They have to open it up, so, but at the same time, again, there needs to be a consistent evaluation of those ethics. They need to understand that, okay, you don't live in the city, but you have a responsibility to the citizen. You don't get to go home and just say, well, you know what? I'm only here for 8 hours. You don't get to do that. You are part of this system now. It's your job to make these people feel like that you care, that you're protecting them. Not just and I'm sure you have it there. You got somebody working in Durham making $30,000 a year as a cop, but they can go to Greensboro and make 50. That's their goal. I'm gonna work in Durham a couple of years, then I'm getting out of here. How do we change that mentality and that culture? It's a constant reevaluation. How do we keep cops from getting bitter? It's things like that. So
that makes a lot of sense. So by the way, Brother Mike was making another comment and everything. He says that he wished the law enforcement in Nigeria, West Africa, can learn to educate the first-time offenders instead of exploiting them badly for violating an offense in which they are not aware of. Our challenge is that we have a poor record system. So he was talking about how even there they have a poor record system over there in Nigeria and everything. And one of the things that I'm gearing to wind everything down and everything, but one of the things I was curious about is we live in 3 cities that are definitely have various stereotypes about them and everything. You've definitely mentioned that you've been in Gary, Indiana. You've lived in and worked in Detroit, and of course in Baltimore. So what are some of the things that surprised you about those 3 cities? And what are some of the things that you were either pleasantly surprised by or that you were expecting? Because like I said, all 3 of those cities have a certain kind of rugged reputation, and I'll just put it that way.
They do, yes, and they all have their nicknames, and Baltimore is Bodymore, So I'm in law enforcement because my father was shot when I was 16 in a carjacking. Never found the people. It's a calling to me. Right. And I think what we need to do is we need to evaluate. Like, you can send anybody to the police academy, but that doesn't mean that that's what they're supposed to do. It's almost like preaching. Like, preaching is a calling. It's supposed to be. But there are people in it that shouldn't be in it, obviously, that are ministers. Policing is the same way. So I say that because if you're serving in Detroit or Gary, Baltimore, Miami, any of those places, you need to have a heart for urban policing. It's completely different. And in that, you need to know where you're serving. So Detroit, huge metropolitan area. For example, Detroit versus Baltimore, we don't have row houses, like houses that are connected together. And that was weird to me. So I went there and I was like, man, you got like 30 houses in this block all together, and they're hot. They're like little ovens in the summertime. And then I had to learn that, okay, I'm in these vacants and the guys like actually break holes through all of the vacants. So let's say you had a row of 30 houses. When you go into one, they got all these holes, like a little tunnel system that they run through the vacancies. So cops are falling through the floor and all. It's crazy. We didn't deal with that in Detroit. Yeah. At the same time in Detroit, for different than Baltimore, we, as the police, would not allow 20 people to stand on the corner in white T-shirts and jeans. They do that in Baltimore all day. Like, that blew, I got in trouble, matter of fact, because I remember one time I parked my car on the curb on the sidewalk at the corner because they just would not get off the corner. I was like, why are you loitering on the corner? I know what you're doing. You're selling. I'm not going to do that because I'm not going to just get into it with 20 people right now. But I'm going to just park my car right here on this corner on the sidewalk so you see me sitting here. You're not going to disrespect me like that. Right. Gary has gotten a bad rap. Gary is a microcosm of Chicago, but Chicago is way more violent. Gary police, they have a really hard job. It's a smaller community, but at the same time, they have similar issues, but they don't have nearly the body count or anything that like it used to be in the 80s. They very fortunately, the problem with Gary, like Detroit, people left and that money went out to the suburbs. The difference is the criminals left too. So that type of violent crime, there's just no money in it. There's just no money in having a big gang war in Gary because there's nothing to profit from it. So it's a little different than those other places. But Gary's on the rebuild. They've torn some things down. Detroit, of course, but again, it's the community, like your brother said, that made the comment, the community is a large part of it. We need them to want to not point fingers, but I was always taught if you're going to give a problem, offer a solution. You want to do police reform, come join the police reform board or create a COPA, an equivalent to the citizens' accountability in your city, your town. Propose that to the government. Make them spend money on that stuff so that the citizens are empowered as checks and balances against the police so that we bridge the gap and they can understand. Make citizens, we have almost all towns have a citizens police academy. Right. People should go through that because it's an exposure to the inside of it. You get to feel that pressure and responsibility of carrying a gun and you becoming an immediate target. When I put a badge on, I am no longer a black man. I'm a cop. It's just, I've been called more names than I can think of probably, you know what I mean? And I don't belong to any one or other. It's my responsibility to find myself. But it does get frustrating when I'm protecting these same people and they're like treating me as if I'm not a part of the community because I am.
Well, and what do you say to folks who ask whether organized crime still exists? Because I've heard some folks say that the mafia no longer exists, that organized crime is gone, and then some folks are like, no, it's out there and it's still out there in a big way. It may just be different versions of it. It might be like the Latin American version and the Italian version, but it's still out there. For those that are thinking that it's gone, that it was here in the heyday of the 20s, do you think that is something that y'all don't have to be concerned about, or is it still something that's very much a concern to folks out in law enforcement?
It's there. It's just different. It's taken on the form of, for example, human trafficking. I don't think people really understand what that is, and they need to be educated on it because human trafficking is about 3 times more profitable than gun trafficking. You know why? Because you can sell people multiple times. You take one girl and put her in a room for 12 hours with multiple men that are paying $100 an hour. That's money. Then you take that same girl and you move to a hotel across town and do the same thing for a month. And then you move them to another city. So it's not like a gun where you sell one time. It's a huge problem. Cyber crimes, this hacking, cyberbullying. Not cyberbullying, but that's a problem too. But they're organized crimes with identity theft. That's not just individual people doing that. So yeah, it's just taking on a different form, more lucrative. Now I can sit back in my room and you'll never know who I am almost. So that's why we have cybercrime task force and human trafficking initiative. These things have always been around. I think we used to call it white slavery back in the day or something. Stuff like that. They've been around. They just evolved. We're just playing catch up. And again, these citizens, they think the human trafficking is occurring in downtown Durham or outside, out in Durham. No, they're absolutely not. They're in these suburban households where, I've had more exposure to that, where they were in houses in $1 million communities because nobody asked questions.
Right.
You know what I mean? Obviously, you see drug traffic coming in and out. You're going to say something about that. But this house down the street, you making $1 million and nobody's really paying attention to that.
Yeah, nobody's paying attention to that. And then there's like mysterious houses. I know a friend of mine that drives for the food services, drives, I think for Grubhub and DoorDash and one of those. And she had actually noticed a house that seemed to have some very suspicious kind of activities. But even to this day, we don't know what's going on in the house because, like I said, it's a gated house. There's a number of folks. When she makes their deliveries, they want it dropped off in a certain place and things of that nature. So,
really? Wow.
The theory is that it could be anything or it could be something very innocent, but one doesn't really know because it raises some red flags even to the common citizen, but it's so tightly protected that one doesn't know. And there's all kinds of theories. I've even seen it on some of the, the Facebooks and the group things that go down to what is or isn't. Like I said, a lot of times in suburban neighborhoods, because that's what's going on in the suburban neighborhood. Like I said, it could be somebody in there doing something totally innocent, or it could be something very sinister. But
it's something to that. It just sounds fishy. But you have that. And what they'll do is, like, for example, in that house, they'll have a 4-bedroom house, and they'll put like 2 mattresses and a TV in each room. They won't have any furniture or anything. They have a couple guys staying there, and they'll just have clients come in and out. You'll never know because the girls never come out.
Right.
Or like you said, they have deliveries, and you don't necessarily see the foot traffic, or the guy might be driving Mercedes or something, and you know what I mean? It's hidden, but it's in our backyard. This is not a third world country problem. What's the major highway that goes through your area? Like, not 95, but 95, right? So 95, so 95, that's Baltimore, DC. 95 is a major corridor for trafficking because they can go through, hit all those cities. They can just get people, abduct them, and literally just years of trafficking those people up and down, making money, men and women. And they have quick access. Organized retail theft is another one where they go through, and you have Walmarts all over the place now. A lot of those Walmarts want to attract people driving through. Next time you get on 95, figure out how many Walmarts and stuff are along 95 or close to it. Organized retail theft, they know that they can go and hit these and get right on 95 and they're out. So it still exists. Again, it's just evolved.
And it's different kinds of crimes, because I know a number of folks are also seeing folks that are, as you mentioned earlier when we were talking about folks that are like losing their money or having their money stolen from them, their identity stolen, and things along that line. And sometimes they do that through catfishing. So they'll try to find ways to seduce you some kind of way or another. And then next thing you know, they're trying to get to your bank account or get it to other kinds of bank accounts, or trying to hustle you one way or another in that regard. So I'm thinking that that's another crime that's out there that's hard to prosecute, because one, you don't know who the person is, and definitely, they will oftentimes give fake pictures or fake voices or a number of other things out there. So, you might be talking to some, hate to put it this way, but some 70 or 80-year-old woman with a gap tooth, but they're actually like a 20-year-old or a 30-year-old seductive young lady, but they've got the pictures to go with it. But they're really an 80-year-old gap tooth gentleman. It might even be an 80-year-old gap tooth woman. It might be an 80-year-old gap tooth.
Right. I've been talking to for years, Right. Yeah, it's a problem. Again, we're in a society where everybody wants anything fast and in a hurry. Just need to take a step back. We just need to take a step back. You talking to somebody for 2 years and then you get mad because they took your money that you sent them and you never met them in person. How's that even possible? Why is there a show called Catfish? If not so many people, we're getting duped by it. I don't see how it's possible. I just, practically speaking, I don't understand it, but people are, that's what I mean. People don't know how to socialize anymore or go out. They're shy. And it's a good way to meet people. It is, but that's not the end all to it.
Yeah. And by the way, Brother Mike was saying, please, Captain D, don't be angry. Why people do treat you like you are not part of the community. The truth is people really don't trust the police because they think a police officer can betray them. This is because of the corruption in the system. In Nigeria, I can recall a man disowning his son because he joined the police force. So he actually disowned his son.
Yeah. You know what, Brother Mike? I'm glad he made that point. I'm just real quickly, Brother Mike, I appreciate that. We do have a cultural problem. This is another problem with policing. We have a huge influx, Nigerians, Kenyans, people from everywhere, South Africa, Europe, wherever they come from. They come here. U.S. policing is different. We're unique in how we police. Most of those societies, you go to Israel or you go in the airport, you're going to see they usually have national police forces. They're usually heavily armed. Mexico, places like that, and a lot of them are heavily corrupted because the structure is so fine. At the point, there's one person running all of this. So you do have Nigeria where there's an extremely. I have a friend that started some car washes over there, which is a huge commodity for them. That was robbed by some police officers, because they're walking around wearing AKs. They are the authority. There's nobody to complain to. So when they come here, they do have a perception about policing, and it's hard for them to understand. You have a Nigerian living in Toronto, Canada. He's going to have a different experience than one in Detroit. Actually, he probably won't be messed with in Detroit, but somewhere else, you know what I mean? So yeah, there's a different disparity. Culturally, as police officers, we need to respect and embrace going into an Arab house. You don't stand in the doorway. You don't disrespect them that way. Or going into an Asian house, you go to the elder and address them first. There are different cultural mores that we have that police officers, a lot of times, they just don't care. They figure they're there, just get to the problem, and that's it. But it's more to it than that. And again, it has to be a constant indoctrination, not just the police academy. That does not work anymore.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The reason you have a lot of questions because what happened in your own family and things of that nature. And I've actually had some family members that have gone through that as well. As a matter of fact, there's a famous case here in North Carolina, which is a case of Faith Hedgepeth. They've never solved their crime, never solved their murder, or anything of that nature. And that is actually my uncle's niece. So like I said, the family through marriage, so it's not like my cousin or anything. It's on the flip side, but he actually appeared at like some parties at my mom's house and everything of that nature. So I do remember Faith when she was living and all of that, and know she was very much involved in the Native American culture here in North Carolina and things along that line. So as one that went through that yourself, for those that are in the middle of those unsolved cases, and there's also another case that I know that existed in Chapel Hill, and actually I think they did find that person's murderer and everything. For those that are involved in those kind of cases where it's unsolved, what kind of advice do you give to folks that have gone through that? Because that's something that you went through as a kid. It's part of the reason that you became a police officer, but I'm also sure that you've had to share this story with others and giving folks advice when they're going through cases that oftentimes are sometimes never solved. So what kind of advice do you give to folks when they're going through that, what you went through as a kid and what the Hedgepeth family is going through now? Because they have never solved the case, even though they're still working on that, and that was 7 years back.
Wow. A lot of prayer because it's just nothing that you can possibly say to kind of deal with that kind of grief. But I'm going to go back to this. I know I've been beating this dead horse for a minute. It comes down to the community. Somebody saw something. When we are in a place in society where we do not, and listen, I lived in the Detroit, like I said, I still live in the city. So I understand the risk it is to call the police, and you got to live. So you can't tell me that. You can't say, well, I got to live in this neighborhood. Listen, the many outweigh the few. You talking about you got one drug house on a block with 100 houses and you can't come together for this child that was killed in this community. We can't get any information because people are that afraid because they don't trust each other to come together. That's the bigger issue. Cold cases go on. Some of them are remote because, they may be a serial killer. The pieces aren't connected, but a lot of them, people just have not come forward. We solve crimes because somebody finally ends up in jail. They're trying to break a deal. Remember that murder 10 years ago? Well, I got some information about that. All the case breaks. boom, now it's great. But the police, it's hard to do. I have some mentors in Atlanta that have worked homicide that are incredible. They still do some work, but I just learned just watching some of their things that you have to give everybody the same attention. You have to treat each case uniquely, and you have to keep people informed. A lot of times people just want information. But you can't have a case 2 or 3 months and not hear from the detective. That's ridiculous. It doesn't matter if it's a burglary case. At least reach out and say, hey, Mr. Lee, I'm still on your case. I haven't gotten anything, but I got you. As soon as something comes up, I'll let you know. But that's not good enough. I need to reach out because you got to live with it every day. You got to replace your bars on your window, wondering if they're going to come back. So again, it goes both ways, but the community weighs so heavily in the building the confidence of the police to want to do more. It's a cycle. So once we can bridge that gap little by little, it can be incredible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You worked for a number of cities. You've been in for a while. And of course, you came in after being in the military. But what advice would you give for folks that are thinking that they want to go into law enforcement, whether they are doing that as a somebody that is later in their life or whether they're thinking about it in high school? But what advice would you give to folks that are thinking that they want to get involved in law enforcement?
All right. Do your research. Get exposed to it, whether it's doing ride-alongs or the Citizens Police Academy. And we need you. We need qualified minority. Even if you don't think you're qualified, still do it because they need minorities so bad. Be a part of the solution. We need that. We need the diversity, and we need the objectivity. We need the balance. At the same time, this is a lot of power to have. The power to take somebody's freedom in life is huge. I have some friends that I went to grade school with that I love dearly. They went, I don't know if you remember Kwame Kilpatrick, that was the mayor of Detroit, he went to jail. They were under his administration, they went to jail. They came out, they're different now, but that power corrupts like a ridiculous amount. You need to be prepared to deal with that and have a standard. You need something outside of police work. Police officers, I had a saying, you can go into security work. Good security guards make great police officers. Police officers, on the other hand, coming out, have a poor transition to society because they're used to giving orders. They're used to telling people what to do. Even when they become security, they're bitter because people don't listen to them like they used to. And it's a bad transition. But that's only because they let that badge define who they were. You have to have something outside of police work, whether it's church, community service, or something that connects you to community, not just cops. You can't live 24 hours a day as a cop. Even though you are, mentally you have to detach from that. So it took me a long time to learn how to become a husband, a father, and not be a cop all the time. It's very hard to do. But again, with that community, we can do it.
Yeah. And you mentioned everything. How can folks get that book? And for those that have been watching the Roundtable and everything, and I'm glad to have definitely Captain Hervey on and everything. I'm definitely glad to have the conversation going on. But for folks that are interested in learning more about the book and also how to get in touch with you, how would they get in touch with you? And tell us about the book as well. And is the book out, or when will the book be out?
The book should be out next year. I'm still working on it. My wife is a writer, so she's editing. So, she's going to be really particular about it. So I got to do it right. But what I want to do is, I don't know if I can put my email up here, my email address and the contact number, if anybody has questions, or especially about getting
onto the banner, and we can do it that way. So if you put it in the chat, and there should be a chat thing down there.
All right. So I will put this.
So you put that in there.
I'll put it in there, and
I'll reach you.
All right. And there's my email address. I gotta put my glasses on for this part. Make sure I spelled it right.
Detroit318@gmail.com.
Yep. So any questions about that, or even if anything, if people, I don't mind being a part of a movement. and I really want to educate people and other police departments about reflection, because we're only looking at it one way or the other. And it's not until you are standing on both sides that you can realize that we need to get our ethics and morality back and integrity back into policing. And we also need the community's help in rebuilding our confidence in us doing our job.
Well, I do know that one, and I know that Michael's been watching the whole time and has been making some comments. And like I said, I know he's had whole shows on his Mind Closet, and he also comes from a spiritual background as well, where he's been dealing with some of the things that are going on in Nigeria, because they've been having some things around police violence and things of that nature. So some folks would even say that it's similar to what we've been going through with Black Lives Matter. In their situation, it's even different, because a lot of times here in the Black Lives Matter movement, a lot of times, not all the times, but quite often, it's white cops versus the black citizens and things of that nature. But Nigeria is a majority African country, so a lot of times there is actually, as you were talking about earlier with black on black crime, it's black on black crime with the officer. So a lot of times the officers are also black, as well as the victim being black as well. So there it becomes as much of, in my mind, a class issue as it is a race issue and things along those lines. I would even argue that that is probably the case even here in America, that a lot of times it has to do with the class issues and the issues of what's going on in our society economically. Even the reason that some people become criminals is because a lot of times they are doing it out of desperation. So I know that that's been a concern of folks even during the pandemic, is that there's a feel that more and more people may feel too desperate and get into that crime mindset because they are feeling that they're not getting the kind of money that they need, and they're feeling too desperate. So they might feel like, doing that simple shoplift, they got to get that toilet paper. There's a toilet paper shortage again, that might be what they decide to do, or they feel that they can get away with those coins, things of that nature, because too often desperation of any sort leads us to do desperate measures. And I do know that that is even those of you in law enforcement, because y'all can, to some degree, understand why people are doing what they're doing, but you still have to enforce the laws that exist on the books and things of that nature. So you can't be playing favorites, even though you know why people might be doing the crime that they're doing. But if they, saying you do the crime, if you do the crime, you might have to pay with the time or something like that. But it's that old line that folks used to use all the time. And you have to understand that that's a risky run if you are. But is that something that even as one, because I do know that Gary has got some significant poverty areas, and I know that some of your other areas, Detroit and Baltimore as well. So is that something that you've been having to be more concerned about, is the fact that more and more people are becoming desperate because of the pandemic?
Yes, absolutely. And, as police, we have to use discretion. So even though you arrest somebody for shoplifting or something, if you understand their situation, you can always go to court and you can speak on their behalf, and you can say, look, Mr. Smith was compliant. He didn't give me any problems. He just lost his job. I just want to say that, even though he knows that he needs to account for this, we need to cut him a break. We can do that. We have the authority to do that as police. Maybe we need to do more of that, more advocating for people who are in those situations, because some of us are only a paycheck away from that anyway. So, I understand. I've been out, as a veteran, when I, came back, I've had to experience homelessness. That was not something that was fun. And what I found is that even though there are a lot of resources for veterans, there weren't a lot of resources for me necessarily. For example, I'm married, but you don't have any places where couples can go that are homeless. That's a problem. So, again, globally, we do need to add in some of those social justice aspects of it, some of the resource, because it's some corrupt systems out there. It's some corrupt government systems, the money, the social services system, the money's not going where it's supposed to go. People are taking money. People are in shelter. I had experience where the lady was taking the donations from a women's shelter, taking all the lotions and the free gifts and the soaps. Like, how crazy is that? But you know what? There's no oversight. There's no accountability. And the residents outnumber her. But you know what? They didn't want to get put out. They couldn't call the police. So what do? It's all the pieces matter. That's probably my favorite saying. All the pieces matter. We all have a part to play in that. And when it's time to deal with it, We just got to own up to it and just, what you put out there is what you get. You reap what you sow. So I believe I haven't always, I'm not perfect, but I believe I put enough out there that if something happens to me, there's enough grace and mercy left over to help me out of a bad situation.
That makes a lot of sense. At the end of the show and everything is try to give people a chance to give their words of encouragement, their words of positivity is something I try to do on all the shows that I do, whether I'm talking to an actor or an entrepreneur, an activist, or a number of the other folks that I've had the pleasure of talking to here on IBMTV.tv. So what are some of the words of encouragement that as we get ready to get off that you would like to share with folks that are watching and listening either now or they might be catching it later on in replay? Because I do love to give folks a chance to share their words of encouragement, their words of positivity. So the floor is yours.
Oh, well, first of all, support IBM TV and, Mr. Mark Lee, of course, and any of the programming, because I believe in their content. I've talked to Mr. Fan and, the content and the direction that they're going in with the quality. We want to make this a, type of syndication, obviously something paid, but the more importantly is getting the message out. It's just important that we support each other, but not just point fingers. You're doing something. You're using a platform. And again, anybody that's out there, it's great to march and do that. But what are some of the solutions? There are other people out here listening that we can bring to the table. It might not be CNN or something like that, but it may be just one person that's listening to your show that grasps onto what somebody else is saying. And that might be their way of getting that done. So, just to continue to support each other and try and, find solutions to our problems and not just it's much more to being an activist than it is marching, and organizing. You have to take some sort of platform. It could be writing, it could be teaching, it could be a number of things, but we all have to do something.
That is very true. We do. I know that guys will be on later on, so I'm going to close everything out by putting some of the shows that are later and then just airplane on out of here. But the Talking Upstream guys will be doing their thing later on this afternoon, so I'm going to let folks check out a spot about them and a couple of the other shows that air here regularly as well, and then we'll get the airplane on out of here. But definitely, it was great meeting you, Captain Hervey, and definitely of the conversation with you as well. And we'll get you to do a regular law enforcement or a show about on a positive note here on our platform.
Maybe. Yes, sir. Anytime. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. All right. Take care. Thank you so
You know, the funk don't always give you what you want, but it'll give you what you need. You know what I'm saying? We never left. Yo, we back. NHFA in your face. Bringing you something good to your ear hole, y'all. Check it out. It's our time to shine. It's our time to grind.